gentlemen, one thing that I believe is that communication has definitely come a long way, from smoke signals to writing on the walls and even sending messengers and horse riders. But one thing I definitely believe is that communication is a love story. Walk with me as we go to the season premiere, but walk with me as we remember how communication has come such a long way. Remember yourself as a young person crossing 3 rivers to go and meet the love of your life, and you go out there and you meet her and she's not there, and you have to come walk 3 rivers back. And then you finally get that nice job in town, and you finally start writing and communicating to the love of your life, writing those lovely letters in perfumed envelopes. And walk with me and journey with me to the point where we would stand in the CBD and you are waiting in line to communicate and make that important call, to call that person you love, to make that business engagement, and you're holding closely the coin so that you can be able to communicate. Definitely, technology has changed the game forever and for good. Now we have social media, we have smartphones, we have so much internet going on, we have cyberspace that we can be able to interact and communicate. Ladies and gentlemen, you are here because you love technology and you love to communicate. I'd like to welcome each and every one of you to the Kenya Internet Governance Forum, and we are here because we love communication and we have embraced technology. So sit back, relax, engage, open your minds and get ready to be transformed and engaged, all for the better. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, and stay tuned. To open this particular forum for us, this is a man who is a life coach. He is a techpreneur. He is a man who is known to change the game. He has C-level expertise and experience, and even on a board level. He is the CEO and co-founder of Kipochi. Ladies and gentlemen, up next, he is the chairman, board of trustees for the Kenya ICT Action Network. This is none other than the one, the only, the strategic, the seasoned gentleman by the name Ali Hussein. Sit back and relax and stay tuned.
For a moment there, I was wondering whether he was referring to my father or someone else. Welcome to the Kenya Internet Governance Forum today morning. My name is Ali Hussein. I'm the chair of the Kenya ICT Action Network. Welcome to this year's KIGF, hosted by us. The Kenya Internet Action Network is a multi-stakeholder think tank working on ICT policy and regulation and beyond. KICTANet overall objective is to act as a catalyst for reform in ICT and therefore supports both national and global processes towards ensuring ICT-enabled growth and development to improve the livelihoods of Kenyans by pushing for the availability of accessible, efficient, reliable, and affordable ICT services. Our core guiding principle is what we call multi-stakeholderism, which really is a key principle of internet governance, requiring joint management of internet resources by governments, businesses, and the civil society in their respective roles. From a Kenyan perspective, this includes organizations like the Kenya Network Information Center, which is the domain registry of Kenya, which is the national registry. You also have the Communications Authority, which is our regulatory arm, the Ministry of ICT, which basically speaks around policy, KICTANet, of course, ISOC, tech companies, both local and international, that includes Safaricom, Google, and Facebook, and the rest of them. And more important than anything else, both corporate and individual users. So this year's event is basically about internet for human resilience and solidarity. And this choice of the theme this year, of course, we are living in interesting times. The pandemic has now been with us for literally 10 months, and there seems to be no end to it. So how do we as individuals, as organizations, navigate these really, really trying times? I want to take a note that this year's focus, apart from what I have just said focuses on three key areas: data, inclusion, and trust. Themes that KICTANet, in collaboration with UNESCO, delved into early this year when they undertook a groundbreaking study on Internet universality indicators. The Internet Universality Indicators framework has a set of 303 indicators, and Kenya considered 109, which are defined as the core. The indicators assessed how well national stakeholders, including governments, companies, and civil society, perform in adhering to the principles of rights, openness, accessibility, and multi-stakeholder participation. Also, ethnic dimensions and sustainable development. UNESCO launched this report yesterday, which really is quite opportune because it sort of addresses quite a number of the stuff that we are going to be addressing literally 3/4 of the day today. The report is now available online, and I welcome participants to engage with it, in particular to understand our ICT environment. You can visit the UNESCO website or the KICTANet website to have a look at this report, and also it's also available for download in these spaces. Today we take many things for granted. Free email, free social media by the likes of Facebook, cloud computing, etc. Without the silent heroes who work diligently to keep the internet working, from technical organizations like KENIC and Safaricom, to regulators like the Communications Authority, to players like the Kenya Human Rights Commission, APC, and KICTANet, plus global players like the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers and ITU, there will really be no internet. Physical transmission lines of all types, such as wired, fiber optic, and microwave links, along with routing equipment, the accompanying critical software services like the domain name system, email, web hosting, authentication and authorization, storage systems, and database servers are considered critical internet components. If any of these systems and services were to be interrupted for a significant period of time, the internet as we know it will collapse. I don't want to take more of your time because there is a lot of interesting stuff that we will be discussing today. But what I want to do is take this opportunity again to invite you to interact, to understand. As we are engaging with the different panelists and speakers, feel free to make use of these internet tools that we have, like search platforms, to get to understand some of the terminologies. If you are new to this space, you're probably gonna get into a situation where there are so many acronyms being bandied around. Please do not feel out in the woods. Make sure that you ask the right questions for panelists. Make sure that you engage with the different viewers like yourself. I think that's it for me today, and I would like now to invite back our MC, who will take us through the next processes. Thank you very much, and welcome to the Kenya Internet Governance Forum 2020.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and we are glad to have each and every one of you. Thank you also to Ali Hussein, the Chairman, Board of Trustees, for that opening remark. We totally appreciate you. I am equally excited about the engagement that we are going to have today. It's going to be transformative. It's going to be information that is going to change us for the rest of our lives. But most importantly, I am looking forward to the panel discussions, to learn from you, to hear from each and every one of you, and let's make it engaging so that we can be able to take technology here in Nairobi and in the world to the next level. Right, and our next speaker, she is a convener at the Kenya ICT Action Network. She is also a host and moderator on Take on Tech at KBC. and she is an information and communication global advisor. She is also a mentor to so many people, and she is extremely exposed and involved when it comes to matters, communication and technology. We are glad to have her, and we are looking forward to having an engaging session. This is none other than Grace Githaiga. Stay tuned, and my name is Ian Mwerore, and I will be your moderator for today. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Friends, on behalf of the Kenya ICT Action Network, KICTANet, and the Multi-Stakeholder Advisory Group, MAG, which is the team that has put this show together, I wish to welcome you to the Kenya Internet Governance Forum 2020. The Kenya ICT Action Network is a multi-stakeholder think tank working on ICT policy and regulation in Kenya. KICTANet's overall objective is to act as a catalyst for reform in ICT sector, and therefore supports both the development and the improvement of the livelihoods of Kenyans by pushing for available and accessible, efficient, reliable, and affordable ICT services. The network aims to act as an ICT catalyst for reform, and our guiding principle is that of encouraging synergies of ICT policy-related activities and initiatives. As such, KICTANet provides that mechanism and framework for continuing cooperation and collaboration in ICT matters among industry, technical community, academia, media, development partners, and the government. In line with KICTANet's mission of catalyzing ICT reform, the network hosts the Internet Governance Forum annually. The Kenya IGF is a multi-stakeholder forum for policy dialogue on issues of internet governance. The forum is an informal setting, free from binding negotiations, and it brings together stakeholders from the different industry, namely government, private sector, technical community, and civil society. And the aim is to discuss internet governance issues on an equal footing through an open and inclusive process. As such, the Kenya IGF has been held annually since 2008. And Kenya also hosted the Global Internet Governance Forum in 2011. This type of cooperation and engagement is referred to as multi-stakeholder model of internet governance, and which is one of the key features for internet success, especially in Kenya. This model is paramount to ensuring that internet remains sustainable for economic and social development. The IGF is a unique platform for all stakeholders to openly exchange perspectives and concerns on issues that may affect the future of internet for the millions of Kenyans. The proposed theme for this year is Internet for Human Resilience and Solidarity. This is an important issue in light of the role that the internet has played during the COVID-19 pandemic. The sub-themes are data, inclusion, which is major in this time of COVID, because we want everybody to be brought on board where internet is concerned. There's also trust, which is key, especially now that people are operating online. What are trust concerns that that people have when it comes to engaging online? As such, the Kenya Internet Governance Forum hopes to come up with outcomes, and which will be shared in the global IGF, that will also be held online from November 2nd to the 8th November. We are grateful for your time and for participating in today's Kenya IGF, and for the contributions that you will make. KICTANet has continued to enjoy enormous support from different partners and organizations. And I would like to just highlight some of the great friends we have. They include the Communications Authority, Safaricom, Facebook, KICA, the Association of Progressive Communicators, the Kenya Human Rights, and CIO that is helping us hold this hold this Kenya IGF. We value our relationship also with the National Assembly ICT Committee, the Senate ICT Committee, and even the ICT Authority. We want to applaud all members of KICTANet for sustaining the network through sharing the valuable ICT knowledge, which has contributed to shaping ICT policy in this country. We appreciate all of you who are participating today, for being there, for taking part in Kenya IGF 2020, and look forward to stimulating and engaging conversation. Karibuni to Kenya IGF 2020, and asanteni sana.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Kenya Internet Governance Forum 2020. We are so glad to have you here, and we also thank the speakers that we have had so far. I'm hopeful that you will stay engaged and you will stay here, because we have such an amazing panel that has been lined up for you. We'll have a little bit of dancing also involved, and we're going to learn on each other from whatever we're going to discuss today. And let us learn and let us go and take it further so that we can be able to change the face of this world. Up next is an amazing speaker who is going to give us a keynote address on what we need to discuss. He will definitely take us to the next level and open up the session so that now we can also get into the panel discussion. And coming up next, he is the acting head of Cybersecurity Division and National, KICTAnet. This is none other than Joseph Nzano. So we're looking forward to hearing from Joseph. So stay tuned and stay engaged, and keep it here, where this is the place where we transform and change the face of this world. Asante, and stay tuned.
Good morning, everyone, and good morning, the entire internet community. First of all, I really like to thank all those who have made it happen. To introduce myself, my name is Joseph Nzano. I'm working for the Communications Authority of Kenya, currently heading the Cybersecurity Division. But in this function, I'm representing our Madam Director General, Madam Masi Wanjao, who would have loved to be with you today, but unfortunately, due to very unforeseen circumstances, her schedule was clashing with other activities, and she was not able to be with you today. To start off, I would like to thank the conveners of this great event, the Kenya Internet Governance Forum. In particular, I'd like to thank Madam Grace Kidaiga, and also Mr. Barak, and Mr. Hussein, and also all the partners of KICTANet and KICTANet itself for making this happen at this very difficult time when really the COVID-19 pandemic has really changed the way of working, and which has now made us to be more reliant on the internet as opposed to having a physical meeting. Well, personally, I've attended almost all the Kenya Internet Governance Forums since its formation, and it's a great privilege to be here today and to associate with you again, but this time, of course, representing our Director General from Communications Authority of Kenya. So basically, she had some few remarks to make, and I'll try to make them as interactive as possible. And here we go. She says, ladies and gentlemen of the KICTANet community, and all the partners and all the guests invited in this online platform today, and the many activities which will be happening in this week. The CA has continued to partner and to commit to engagement with the various stakeholders, especially to the communication service providers, sector regulators, education sector, and most importantly, the consumers on various matters. In particular, so the Communication Authority has continued to work with KICTANet, being its key partner to the authority's efforts to ensuring engagements and working together in this evolving journey of the ICT industry in Kenya. The authority has continued to participate in almost all the Kenya internet governance forums since the time of its inception. And also, when it grew from the time when it was running a few hours, and eventually now, at least the event takes a whole week. The Communication Authority also recognizes the Kenya School of Internet Governance that has been born out of this process and has continued to open up careers, talent, innovation, opportunities to many young Kenyan ICT practitioners, not only in Kenya, but in Africa region as a whole. Let's not forget that Kenya gave birth to the concept of national and regional internet governance forums that has since been adopted by other countries and regions from all over the world. This has given an opportunity for Kenyans, especially the young ICT practitioners, to have an opportunity to actively participate in many other global ICT gatherings, such as the Global Internet IGF, that is the Internet Governance Forum, to the COVID-19 pandemic. In the past year, the legal framework has seen a number of milestones having been witnessed, including the inauguration of the National ICT Policy of 2019, the operationalization of the Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Act, and also the Data Protection Act, including the establishment of the Data Commissioner's Office, which is now almost completed. Other sectors which we have seen interesting is during that time of COVID-19 is the issue of digital signatures and the use of the national public key infrastructure, where we have had key government entities, including the Ministry of Lands and the Treasury, particularly so in the procurement processes, putting a clear indication that there is now need of using digital signatures or digital encryption to secure electronic transactions in Kenya. Here, the authority, the National KICTAnet, which that is based here, has continued to coordinate responses to cybersecurity matters in collaboration with relevant sector actors locally and internationally. The National KICTAnet detects, prevents, and responds to various cyber threats targeted to the country on a 24/7 hours basis, having commenced round-the-clock operations since way back in 2017. Further, the authority has continued to commit at securing children online, noting that during the time of COVID, most children went to study online. There has been a continuous campaign that has been developed in collaboration with various partners that aims to provide consumers with information and skills to enable them practice safe internet use and minimize or eliminate exposure to risks and vulnerabilities, while at the same time informing consumers, especially girls, children, and youth, the benefits of the various internet services and the attendant risks of various vulnerabilities that they may come across. So Kenya has witnessed the exponential growth in the ICT industry, as shown during the Communications Authority's fourth quarter statistics, of which a number for the financial year 2018-19, financial year 2019-2020, of which the following statistics records significant improvements. For example, 57.03 million Kenyans are now have mobile subscriptions. 30.52 million Kenyans have mobile money subscriptions. What is more interesting, during this fourth quarter, that is the period up to July in this year, 722.55 billion shillings was the value that was exchanged in terms of person-to-person mobile money transfers. There was about 13.34 billion mobile on-net voice traffic and about 41.45 million data internet subscriptions. 13.9 million cyber incidences were detected during that period, of which the authority managed to mitigate and send advisories to about 20,864. As far as the .ke is concerned, and I'm sure they'll give a presentation in the course of the meeting, 95,974 domains were registered to be under the .ke. We would also like to take this opportunity to recognize and celebrate the 25 years so far since the landing of the internet in Africa, which was celebrated last Saturday, the 24th of October 2020. Indeed, during that event, pioneer ICT practitioners shared their experiences of what they had to undergo during the time of ensuring that internet has landed in Africa, 25 years now, and that is very noble. And I'm sure most of the audiences here and some of the colleagues will be participating in the KIGF are among the major contributors of ensuring that the internet in Kenya is available and it is continued to be utilized in various e-government services and also in the commercial sector. With these few remarks, and also on behalf of the Director General, we wish to fruitful deliberations and to declare the Kenya IGF 2020 deliberations officially opened. Thank you very much, and we wish you all the best. Thank you.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Kenya Internet Governance Forum 2020. This is an amazing session where it brings the key and stakeholders of the private sector and the public sector, where we can be able to discuss about emerging issues concerning internet governance. And that is the key thing that we want to discuss today, all right? All the issues that are emerging from the public sector and the private sector. And we are about to go into an amazing panel where we have members of parliament, CEOs, honorable people who are going to come and take us through this particular engaging session. So I want you to sit there and enjoy this panel discussion. It's going to be amazing and it's going to be transformative. And we are going to be discussing in this particular panel, Internet for Human Resilience and Solidarity. Isn't it amazing that we're having this particular discussion, especially during this COVID pandemic? But COVID has helped us to remain transformative, to adapt, and also to embrace this particular virtual platform. We are glad to have you with us. We are glad to be here, and we are looking forward to the most informative and engaging session. To take us through this particular panel, this is the man that I had stated earlier. He is a game changer, and he is known as the man, once he comes in, he turns things around. He has a 360 view on anything concerning internet governance here in Kenya. He is a life coach. He is a techpreneur, and he is a man who mentors many young people in the ICT firm. He is the CEO and co-founder of Kipochi, and he is a seasoned man in the technology field. This is none other than the Chairman Board of Trustees for Kenya ICT Action Network. All right, so sit back and look forward to having Ali back as he's going to come and introduce this lovely panel so that we can be able to stay engaged. So welcome once again. My name is Ian Moirore.
We are always ready kuzunguka kujibana na biashara. And now, Kenyans have kadhaa local and international courier service providers and new e-commerce platforms. The introduction of a national addressing system will fungua even stronger market links and leave no county behind.
Mawasiliano kwetu, nguvu kwako. The Communications Authority of Kenya, opening your world.
How can I skip that net? Oh yeah, that's okay. That's okay.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Kenya Internet Governance Forum. First of all, we want to sincerely apologize for that technical hitch. I know we are all embracing technology, but we're also improving and making things better. So thank you for your patience, and hand on heart, we apologize for that, but we are glad that you're tuned in and that you're here with us. As discussed, we are just about to get into a very interesting, informative panel discussion. The panelists that have been lined up there are seasoned. They have experience and they have the expertise to be able to have this conversation of emerging issues on internet governance to the way and take it to the way forward. All right, we have a professor, seasoned professor on board. We have Mheshimiwa, a honorable who is also on board, and we have CEOs. And so I'd like you to just sit back and relax and enjoy the session and engage each other. And to moderate this particular session, as I had said, this is Ali Hussein. He is the chairman, board of trustees at the Kenya ICT Action Network. All right, so it's gonna be fun, it's gonna be amazing, and it's going to be totally awesome. So sit back and enjoy, and over to you, Ali. My name is Ian Mwerore, and I will be your moderator for this particular event. Thank you. Asante.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome back. So we have a very interesting panel coming up. Internet for human resilience and solidarity is our theme, is our overarching theme for today. But what we are looking at today is what we call CADIT, COVID-assisted digital transformation. With me today, I have Professor Bitange Nemo, who is a professor at the University of Nairobi, but he also is a board member at Safaricom and several other organizations. I also have with me Honorable William Kisang, Chairman National Assembly ICT Committee. Honorable Kisang is a member of Parliament. And last but not least, I have Dr. Kate Gitau, CEO, Kenya ICT Authority. Welcome, Dr. Bitange Ndemo, Honorable Kisang, and Dr. Gitau. Karibuni sana. So let me just quickly talk a bit about what COVID is, what COVID-assisted digital transformation is. A friend of mine, we were having a conversation a few weeks ago, probably a month. Moses Kemibaro said, Ali, you know, things have moved so fast in the last few months when it comes to digital that we are seeing an enforced movement toward digital. How do you think this is going to pan out? Then he told me, I think this is what we will eventually call COVID-assisted or accelerated digital transformation. So with that small little intro, I would like to invite my panelists for a quick introduction to who they are. Dr. Gitau, just a minute and a half of intro, and then we go into our discussions.
Good morning once again. My name is Catherine Gitau. I'm the CEO of the ICT Authority, a state corporation under the Ministry of ICT and Youth Affairs, which takes care of ICT infrastructure, ICT capacity, and promoting the development of the digital economy in Kenya by taking care of public and private sector ICT concerns in Kenya. Thank you very much, and good morning, everyone.
Honorable Kisang, a bit of intro.
Thank you, Ali, and the team. Good morning, all. My name is William Kisang. Are you getting me?
We can hear you clearly, Honorable Kisang.
Good. My name is William Kisang, MD Marakwet West. Marakwet West is in Marakwet County. I'm the chair of Communication, Information and Innovation Committee of National Assembly. And basically, our job as legislators, as most of you know, is to legislate, we do oversight and representation. So basically, I believe in today's discussion, you might want to know maybe what have we done in terms of legislation, in terms of internet, and also in representation. As we represent the people of Kenya, what are we doing? And when it comes to other issues in terms of budget, you will be asking, have we given money to Catherine Gitau in terms so that they can internet across the country? As you realize, she said she's a country and her internet is poor. So if her internet is poor, as the CEO of ICT, how about the rest of the country?
Thank you, Honorable Kisang. Professor Bitange Ndemo, over to you, sir.
Thank you, Ali, and I want to thank KICTANet and the community for inviting me to come and speak.
Professor, you may want to, if there's a gadget that is on your phone or something there's a lot of sound in your sound. And don't worry, guys, this is the technology challenges we are facing as we move along. Over to you.
It's actually not on my side. It is not on my side.
I can hear you, but there is a sound in the background. I don't know if there's an extra phone.
No,
okay, please just go on.
Yes, my name is Bitange Ndemo, and I teach at the University of Nairobi, and a fan of IGF functions which I have attended for the last, I think, 15 years.
Sorry. I was having a bit of challenge. Sound on your side. Maybe if you're probably on your tablet or laptop, and then your phone is also on.
No, it's a laptop. It's a laptop, and with the very, very high speeds. I don't know where you are yourself.
Okay. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, in your daily lives as shapers of policy and engagement within the ICT, internet, and technology sector, let's look at some of the stuff that we have faced in the last couple of months because of the pandemic. Schools have not closed. I mean, some schools have closed. Most people have been working from home. In fact, I had a survey by a local company who asked their employees, when the pandemic is over, post-pandemic, how would you like to continue working? Would you want to come back fully to the office, or would you want to work home? The numbers was astounding. 77% of employees said they would prefer to continue working from home. As a country, are we prepared for that kind of conversation with especially the Gen Zs and the millennials? We have had serious challenges with ICT infrastructure. In fact, we are facing those challenges right now. The minute you are out of some of the major cities in this country, you find yourself struggling with connectivity. What do you guys have to say about that? And as policymakers and as shapers in this country, what can we do better? Maybe let me start with Dr. Gitau. I hope your sound is a bit better now. Dr. Gitau, talk to us about that.
Okay, thank you very much, and I'm sorry for that interruption. As you can see, I've moved from a private room to a public area to try and improve my connection.
I'm unable to hear Dr. Gitau on my...
Can you hear me? Hello?
I'm unable to hear you clearly, so I'm not sure whether it's your side or...
So,
brilliant.
Yes. I'll just say what we've done. Of course, the issue of internet connectivity, as we have all experienced, it's not just Kenya. Globally, the quality of the internet connection varies with location. And the work of internet connection in every place is an ongoing activity. It's also an expensive exercise to achieve it and to maintain it. Now, in Kenya, we've worked together well, the public and the private sector. One, the public sector has invested in the sea cable. I think this was done during the time when Professor Bitange Ndemo, who is here, was the PS in the Ministry of ICT, and the government invested heavily in the submarine cable we know as TIMS. We've also invested during the same period and slightly before in the national optic fiber backbone infrastructure. And while there have been challenges, we do have close to 9,000 kilometers of fiber. Some of it is in some routes, it's aging a little because it was developed between 2007 and 2011, so it's 10 years old or so, and some of it requires rehabilitation, and some of it is new and is high quality, high speed infrastructure. And then I'd also like to say that at the ICT Authority, we've developed a national ICT infrastructure master plan to help the country develop the infrastructure that's needed. So it is true that the quality of connectivity varies depending on where you are in the country, but I would like to say that the government within our means, we are dedicated to continuously improving connectivity for all Kenyans, because as we've known from COVID, it is a basic human right and it is an essential utility for the conduct of education, health, and business and all human activity. Thank you very much. I'll stop there.
For that in response to my query. Honorable Kisang, anything from you?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ali. I'm happy to hear what Gate has said, because we know for the last 6 months, we have all been at home, schools are closed, basically people are working from home, and to some extent, even though people have lost lives, it's a blessing in disguise for technology, because many people now are embracing technology. People are embracing internet, and if you ask even those who are working now from home, there is more productivity. You don't have to be on the road for 2 hours in traffic jam going to work. There is a friend of mine who is working for a multinational the other day. He said basically they are going to allow people to continue working from home. Maybe they just come to the offices occasionally. So on your question, is what Kate has said, government has invested heavily. We're under sea cable, and there is also what we call the fiber, NOPI. We have NOPI 1, NOPI 2, NOPI 2 expansion. This is the national fiber optic. And a lot of resources has been put in. What we want, what we are lacking now is, and we need to improve on, is the last mile connectivity of fiber to homes, to schools, to institutions. And this is where the private sector, particularly KICTANet now, you can champion, so that the likes of Safaricom, the likes of HW Telecom, Liquid Telecom, we can come in and partner with government so that we fast track internet to all our rural homes, to our villages, to our schools, so that basically, those who are a country, especially rural far areas like the northern Kenya, while others, the most of other children, students were doing internet learning, online learning, these particular group basically were at home, taking care of animals. So we already have like 9,000 kilometers, and as a member of parliament, we are actually coming in to allocate resources so that ICT authority moves fast to do the last mile connectivity of fiber to our schools, to our hospitals. And then also very important that we need to note is the industry came in a while ago and set up some money, some resources, a fund called the Master Service Fund. Currently, as under the ICT committee, we have an amendment to KICA Act, and we are looking at the mandate of the council that is overseeing the use of these funds, and we want to improve. We want to ensure the country is covered across. We want, there are about 13 counties that are underserved. When these 13 counties are underserved, how can we help them at the same time improving those counties that are served, but basically the network is poor, as Gate said she had to go to a public place to get a good quality network. If I go to my own home at the country, I can't, it's difficult even to stream. So let's at least we are happy with what's happening, but we need to partner with the private sector. But we are happy people are really impressed with technology now. Even those who are resisting, they are on it.
Thank you, Honorable Kisang. Professor Ndemo.
As for the COVID assisted, COVID has assisted us greatly, especially at the universities, because we started almost immediately to teach from home. And what I can say out of that is that I don't think learning will ever be the same again, because especially graduate students, they love the way we are teaching at the moment. we still have challenges with undergraduate students, and this is something that emanates from the poverty levels that we have. A number of students are not able to participate fully because of poverty or because of lacking space where they can learn. So we need to begin to help, especially creating social halls where students who live in difficult neighborhoods can go and learn. I'm talking about students who live in places like Madari and other places where they can't find space in their home to study. But overall, as Mheshimiwa said, this has been a blessing in disguise because we have been pushed into beginning to leverage technology in many of the things that we are doing. Unfortunately, we have not seen a lot, especially from the government with respect to reduction of taxes. Everybody agrees that internet is a human rights issue, but we are paying dearly and making it unaffordable. Access is being addressed. Access to a large extent, 4G covers almost 85% of the country. We would want to see it everywhere covered. We need the reduction in terms of duties and other taxes from devices in order to enable kids in rural areas to access content online. So there are still things that needs to be done, but overall, COVID has assisted us with respect to transitioning to leveraging the internet for many of the things that we used to do physically in offices. Thank you.
I completely agree with you, gentlemen. I completely agree with you. We still have Dr. Gitao. I think for me, one of the most critical things infrastructure is there. And in fact, I recall Professor Ndemo, you and I and a few others having this conversation that Honorable Kisang alluded to. Novbi has a node at every county today. Yet you still have people that don't have connectivity. Various reasons. Generally across Africa, internet penetration is around 30%. In Kenya, it's hovering between 35 and 40%. I'm talking about broadband, fast internet, irrespective of some of the statistics that we see. The real numbers, as we like to say in Kenya, if we took a ground, to be different. How do we ensure that no one is left behind? I recall Dr. Mano pre-Teams, undersea cable, connectivity was super expensive. We have seen dramatic decrease of connectivity costs in this country, but I think we still have ways to go. I think the United Nations has even talked about the fact that internet is a human right. But that's just a statement. How do we actually actualize it? Because today, internet is just another utility like water and electricity. Now, government has played its part, I think. How can we incentivize further the private sector to ensure that costs remain low, people are brought in online, so we leave, especially today about education, we leave no child behind. Honorable Kisang, I'm addressing this specifically for you because some of these issues require policy interventions. So, for example, zero rating of connectivity of internet. It's like taxing water and taxing electricity. We are shooting ourselves in the foot. The young people in this country are super talented. We have this whole gig economy. My question to you, Honorable Kisang, how can we assist you? How can we in the private sector assist you to create this policy environment that will completely zero-rate some of these ICT services? Sir, over to you.
Yes, thank you very much. I think sometimes last year, the Minister of ICT came up with the ICT policy. And sometimes early this year, the policy was adopted. And what I expected the private sector is to work closely with the ministry to ensure the policies that are put in place, especially this emerging sector of ICT, we give some tax holiday for a period so that we can catch up with the rest of the country. We can catch up with South Africa, we catch up with Europe and America. So recently, there was actually a law, there is a bill that came to Parliament on a digital tax. And I didn't see the participation of the private sector lobbying. You know, most of these things you lobby, you go to Treasury, lobby with Treasury, lobby with Minister of ICT, KRA, and up to the level of the CEO of the country, so that you give and explain the reason why you need taxes to be lowered. When we come to the House, we come to the National Assembly, some of us who are ICT experts, we lobby, but because we don't have the numbers, and the sector is not coming in also to support us, we lose some of the amendments that we want. Like now, when we say we zero-rate, say internet and some of the ICT issues, this becomes a money bill. And when you say you zero-rate, the government says they have already factored in revenue from these sectors. What do? Professor knows, you know, he was PS, an accounting officer. So my take is we need to lobby, and lobby very hard. So basically to open up the sector, what members of Parliament are doing currently, and we started from the last Parliament, we are partnering with the Ministry of ICT to create what we call constituency innovation hubs in every ward of our constituencies. I have 6 wards in Marakwet West, but I have already done 2. This year I'm doing also 2. So that what Professor is talking about, that, you know, our students who are basically from very poor background, they don't have internet, they can go to these particular centers and access internet free of charge, where ICT Authority is in collaboration with Telecom. They basically ensure there is internet around the clock for the youth, so that they can also access online jobs, they can do online research on our constituencies across the country. But this is just, but most of them, I'm not impressed.
Thank you.
They don't know the importance. What I'm saying, let us increase our lobbying. Let's increase lobbying.
I completely agree
so that when laws come in, we see our.
I've lost you, Honorable Kisang. Thank you, Honorable Kisang. I'm sure you will come back. I lost you there for a minute, but I think
I'm hearing you.
But I think what you've pointed to is very critical. In some circles, we discuss about having a seat at the table, and a seat at the table means engaging with policymakers, regulators, and stuff like that. I know we've run out of time. I suppose.
And you get champions. What you do early is to look for champions.
Thank you. I know we've run out of time because this is a very important conversation to have. I know we have questions, but what I would ask, because of time, I know my honorable panelists have other engagements at 10 o'clock, and I promised to release them at 10 o'clock. So what I would suggest is that if viewers and participants have questions, they can still send them, and we'll find a way to respond to them. Thank you so much, everyone. What I want to leave everyone today with those thoughts. I think my 3 panelists have articulated issues very well. But one of the most critical things when it comes to the private sector is that we still don't engage government enough. And then when bills are put in place, we get surprised. So I'll leave you with this thought. If people are having lunch and you do not have a seat at the table, what I will do, what you will have is very simple. If you don't have a seat at the table, you are on the menu. And you know if you're on the menu, basically your food. I know Dr. Gitau wants to say one last word, so maybe what I'll do is I'll allow Dr. Gitau to say something to close, and Professor Ndemo too, and then we close this session. Dr. Gitau, over to you.
Thank you very much. As you can see, I've moved again. I thank you, Ali, for an interesting panel, together with my fellow panelists, Honorable William Kisang and Professor Bitange Ndemo, and the audience. Now, I'd just like to say that the cost of internet, yes, it's about taxation, I agree, but there's also the architecture of the technical architecture. And we need to have an architecture that creates cost efficiency in the delivery of the network. And that's why we need a plan, and we need the technical capacity to have an efficient and effective network. A different point is collaboration and sharing. Some of the inefficiency is caused by each operator building their own infrastructure instead of sharing. So that creates a lot of wastage, and we're working with bodies such as TESPOC to encourage the public and the private sector to share infrastructure and to deliver it in a cost-efficient manner. And as Honorable William Kisang has said, we're also doing what we can to provide public facilities where people can access the internet freely. The last thing I'll say is one of the reasons why some countries are ahead of us is because they convert their local innovation into manufacture. So they not only deliver it cost effectively in their own countries, but they also earn and grow their economy by exporting what they manufacture. And I think Kenya also has a lot of potential in this area, and we are trying our best through our innovation initiatives at the ICT Authority. As you saw, we have given the 30-day challenge to all universities to produce a cost-effective local device for all children in Kenya to access, and other initiatives. But I know we're out of time, so I hope you'll invite us again to share this in more depth. Thank you so much for this panel.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gitau. Professor, closing remarks.
It is online, and Mheshimiwa is that the government has done quite well with respect to digitalization. I say this because there is an inverse relationship between cost and demand. When there is greater demand, the private sector would invest and lower the cost. So we need intensified digitalization, especially land records. Now that you see that we are going to have many other crises like COVID, we need to digitalize, enable the people to work from wherever they are, create greater demand for the private sector to invest and lower the cost of connectivity. So we have benefited in understanding why we need internet now as we move towards the fourth industrial revolution. That is all I can say.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much,
Professor Ndemo.
Honorable
Dr. Gitau.
Professor Ndemo.
We still have a few more hours to go to this event of today, but again, I really want to thank all of you for attending today, and members who have come online. If you have any queries, please feel free to ask them, and we will definitely get back to you. Thank you all. Thank you very much, and have a great rest of IGF Day.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Kenya Internet Governance Forum 2020. That was quite an amazing and fantastic panel. We first of all want to apologize for any technical hitches that we have experienced, but I'm confident that we have everything on track and we are ready to get back on the road and take this forum to another level. So thank you for being engaged with us. Thank you for also being part of this successful journey. Also want to mention and appreciate one of our platinum sponsors, that is Facebook. We also want to appreciate Safaricom as one of our partners, and we are glad to have you on board. So thank you for being engaged and for being an amazing partner with us to this particular forum. Also, appreciation to Ali Hussein for taking us and moderating us through that particular panel discussion. It was great to hear from also Professor Bitange, sorry. It was great to hear from Professor Bitange. This is one gentleman that I actually enjoyed watching his show, his session on Engage. And also we appreciate having Honorable William Kisang, MP LK Marakwet West. We were glad to have him also on board, and Dr. Kate Gitao. So thank you. It was good to have members from the public sector and also the private sector, and seeing how we can be able to have that synergy together. And I'm confident that we're going to partner, work together, and there will be a lot of synergy together, kind of like a dance, all right, where we can come together and dance and take technology to the next level. Let us dance together. Let us bring the motion. Let us bring the rhythm. Let us bring the flow, and let us enjoy each other as we come and collaborate to make this technology space in Kenya a different and a fantastic experience. Also, it was glad also to see that quite a huge number, I think it was 77% of the people who they prefer working from home. So we know that yes, people prefer working at home and having that convenience, all right, working from home. So that means that definitely that's an open opportunity for technology, for teleworker, for remote working, remote access, and more so also when it comes to cybersecurity. That is definitely a need that is there. So I hope that the vendors who are listening, the people in the private sector and the public sector, please take note of the panel discussions. See how you can be able to leverage from that. See how you can be able to get opportunities, because every crisis, every pandemic, anything that happens around us, we have to look at it as an opportunity to transform and an opportunity for us to be able to embrace change and bring transformation within our circles. So we were glad to have you, and thank you for that particular panel. Now we want to go and discuss about exercising rights for data. All right, and some of the discussions that we're going to have is how can we ensure transparency and accountability when it comes to handling personal data. Definitely a while back we heard a lot about WikiLeaks and how people can be able to access your personal data, but what about transparency and accountability, especially in the organization that you're working for? All right, so that's one of the discussions that we want to go and handle. And how can we ensure equitable access to data and foster competition and innovation? I know definitely there's something that the government was working on with Telecom Kenya about the balloons out there and giving internet access across the country. And I believe that is one of the great initiatives that are there. We appreciate people like Liquid Telecom who have a wide and vast fiber infrastructure in the country. So I know that the government is keen to ensure that everyone has got access to internet and access to data. When you look at Safaricom and all the other service providers with the wide towers that they have all over the country, just to make sure that there's accessibility of voice and data to the people of the Republic of Kenya. So I know this is a keen topic, and I know that is where we're looking at, especially the young people. I believe that I'm a post-millennial, or I can call myself a millennial, but we all rely on data. We all rely on technology. So that is the Maslow hierarchy of needs has definitely changed, all right? And you can find that when it comes to data, when it comes to internet connectivity, it is one of the key needs that we all have, all right? So we want to embrace that, and we definitely want to see and learn also from the public sector on how we can be able to take it further, all right? So thank you so much. So up next, we want to have a video from one of our sponsors just to give us a little bit of visibility on what is happening. So sit back and relax, enjoy yourself, and let us engage and see how this session is going to go, all right? Thank you so much. My name is Ian. I am proud, honored, and I love being here, and we definitely love having you on board. Thank you and welcome once again.
I've said it here that
these girls are learning a new language, coding. Priscilla Daju recently enrolled here. She wants to become a software developer. However, Priscilla believes that girls like her are disadvantaged by gender stereotypes from accessing technology.
The perception is that it's only boys that can make it in technology because they can do everything and girls who can't do anything. So then whatever like they want, they'll get it. So they can even get a computer and everything.
Soronko Academy trains women and girls like Priscilla to lead and innovate through technology. But there is a challenge. The high cost of data creates barrier to education.
We have 3 data providers. There's one that we go for because the cost is lower, but it may not be as stable. And there's another one that is higher cost, but we need it because of stability. In some sessions, we have to ensure that nobody is streaming videos past a certain point because data is expensive, and so we have to ensure that we even put restrictions on certain sites.
A recent EcoBank research shows that Africa has the most expensive mobile data globally. And a soon-to-be released data by the World Wide Web Foundation has revealed that since 2015, the rate of global online access has sharply dropped, particularly among women and the poor in rural regions. Perhaps because cost of access is above the UN's target of 2% of monthly income. If there's access at all, boys are often given priority.
Experts estimate that there's a 12% gender gap in terms of male and female access to the internet globally. In developing countries, it is 31%. What this implies is that a significant number of women and girls are missing out on the benefits that the internet provides to improve their lives.
Efforts are being made to reverse the trend. Nicola Bidwell teaches women how to set up their own community internet networks. But she also emphasizes that mobile network operators and governments need to do more to expand their coverage to rural areas.
Many women live rural in Africa, and it's very difficult for mobile operators sometimes to afford to extend to all of those areas. But if you can support community networks, they're also training women to be able to do things themselves. So I would say the first step to women's access is involve and support community networks.
Young girls like Priscilla Daju remain hopeful that the authorities will initiate the necessary changes to enable women and girls have more access to technology. In an increasingly digital world, this will ultimately make a significant impact both for equality and Ghana's economic future. Thomas Nadi, BBC News, Accra.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Glad to have you on board. As discussed, we definitely want to go into this exciting panel discussion where we're going to discuss about exercising the rights for data. But before we go into that, we want to appreciate our platinum sponsors, that is Facebook, Safaricom, and also Communications Authority of Kenya. Thank you for your partnership. Thank you for being on board. We definitely love you, and hand on heart, I appreciate you. So to moderate this particular session is the head of public policy, East and Horn of Africa at Facebook. I am looking forward to getting to hear more about what she has to say. She is the ever so lively and the icing on the cake. This is Mercy Ndegwa, who is going to come on board and take us through this session and tell us a little bit more about exercising rights for data. So welcome on board, Mercy. This is Ian Mwerore, your moderator, and this session is powered by CIO. Welcome.
Good morning, everyone. I am really delighted to be here with you this morning to talk about data and exercising of rights. My name is Mercy Ndegwa, and I'm the head of public policy for the Eastern Horn of Africa at Facebook. And I can tell you that we contend with issues regarding data every single day. And so it's very exciting to continue this conversation here today at the Internet Governance Forum 2020. And I'm really honored and humbled to be joined by a really strong panel of women in tech who have been in tech for a really long time. You'll be hearing a lot of views from women who have been in and still are in academia, are in tech policy and have been in tech policy for many years, and are continuing to shape and influence this space. And so the question of data, I think, is one that is really important. And when we look at the question of rights, and rights when it comes to data rights impacts everybody that really is using anything digital today. So that is not just the users themselves. It includes even government, for example, who also process a lot of data. It includes also industry players that are involved in one way or the other, whether they're startups or innovating around data or doing anything around it really. And there's also a lot of work that's being done, for example, to provide, to make data useful for good things, data for good. Lots of people call it different things. There's tech for D, tech for development. There's data for good in terms of using it, for example, for population coverage issues, and there's many other innovations we've seen around how data is used. In this market, I think we are not lost for lots of examples that we can speak of that have seen how data has been used to do good things. But there are also maybe concerns that have been raised many times and flagged by people when it comes to data and how that is created, how that is shared, how that is stored, how that is removed, for example, when people finally have access to that information. And so today we'll be talking a little bit around some of those issues. And like I said before, I'm really delighted because I'm joined by a female-only panel of women who have been in tech and continue to influence this space. And I will have them introduce themselves, but just to mention them, and they are on standby right now, we have Professor Sylvia, and I would like to have Professor Sylvia start off. We also have Karimi Ruria and Grace Bomu, all of whom are on standby and ready to engage with you this morning. So over to Professor Sylvia, if you could please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself. All right, I think Sylvia is experiencing a bit of technical challenges, so I'll move on to Karimi Ruria. If you could, Karimi, I hope you can hear us. If you could kindly introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you.
Thank you very much, Mercy. I hope you can all hear me. So my name is, absolutely, thank you. So my name is Karimi Ruria. I am the Senior Manager Public Policy at Safaricom Limited. As Mercy has said, I've been in the industry for a while now, for quite a while now, dealing both with policy and tech policy, specifically in ICT and financial services, as well as government relations and stakeholder management. So I work for Safaricom Limited, which Safaricom PLC, which I know is known to many of you, if not all of you. And Safaricom has the purpose of transforming lives through being committed to connecting as many Kenyans, all Kenyans, to digital ICT services and financial services.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Karimi. We also have Grace Bomu, who is also joining us on this panel. Grace, over to you. Can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you?
Good morning, everybody. Sorry about that. I live near a politician who has a trouble. But my name is Grace Bomu. I am a research fellow at the Center for IP and IT Law, CIPIT, at Strathmore University. And our center really deals with issues of data, issues of digital ID, as well as issues to do with AI and policies around AI. So I'm excited to be on this panel.
Thank you so much, Grace, for that intro, and we will definitely be touching on the issues of AI, which is a really important one as well. I think Prof is still not on, but I would love to give you a little bit of information about Professor. So if you just give me a second. So Professor Sylvia Kangara is the founding and associate professor of law at Riara Law School. And during Professor Kangara's tenure at Riara University, the law school has retained its status as a fully accredited legal education provider in Kenya and is now ranked among the top law schools in the country. Before her appointment, Professor Kangara taught at the University of Washington School of Law, Seattle, and at the Oklahoma City University Law School. Prior to that, she was an international legal associate in the project finance and Equipment Leasing Department at White and Case LLP, New York office. She has given lectures or presentations at various institutions, including the University of Cape Town, South Africa, Harvard Law School, Goethe University in Germany, University of Perugia in Italy, Osgood Hall Law School in Canada, and King's College London. So like I said, we have a very strong female panel, and we will be looking to delve into a little bit of that. And now Sylvia is here, so I'd like her to just say just to say hello so that you get to see her face, and then we will get started with the session. Over to you, Professor.
Thank you, Mercy. Sylvia is just fine. Really delighted to be here with you this morning. Can you hear me?
Can hear you well.
Oh, wonderful. You did a wonderful and elaborate introduction, so I don't need to say more about myself, except to say that I was founding Dean of Riara Law School, and I am not at Riara Law School at the moment, just a slight correction, but everything else you said was very gracious of you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. And so, like I indicated earlier, the issue of data and exercising of rights is one that is really critical. I think today, when you think about the digital space, a lot has been done in there in terms of innovation. It's still in its nascent stages if you think about how much is still evolving and happening within the data space. But then we have to ask ourselves, what does that look like when digital space intersects with human rights, with digital rights of users, of the different stakeholders or players that are involved in that space? And to discuss this, we'll be looking at a couple of questions that have been proposed, and I hope that as the delegates that are signed on this session, that you will also be able to weigh in on this conversation later. So the way we'll go about it, I will invite my panelists to speak a little bit about what they're doing in the space of data, to share with us what are the key topical issues that they see in that space and what they're doing around it. And then we'll quickly delve back into the questions, and at the end of the session, we'll invite all of the delegates to weigh in through the chat or whatever means available to you to let us know if you have questions, and we'll tackle those. So starting with Professor Sylvia, if you could kindly tell us what is it that you're doing in the space of data? What would you like to share with us around this?
Thank you, Mercy. I teach corporate finance, and I also teach property law, and I teach technology law. And those are also my areas of practice. So what we are seeing in this area is a lot of concern by citizens about their personal information being out there. You see, traditionally, the right to privacy was an individual's obligation. We bought safe deposit boxes, we built fences, we built walls. And if those were breached, people went and sued for trespass or theft. But now the problem with data is that personal information is out there, but you do not have control or possession of it. You cannot build a wall around it or put it in a safe deposit box. So we are seeing that there's need for laws to develop and evolve in a manner that moves us from traditional ideas of possession and control to new ideas of how can you control that which you do not have possession or control over. So that means as of accountability and transparency has moved to the people who have control of your data. But the question remains, how can they be transparent and how can they be accountable unless they also understand that citizens still retain ownership of their personal information and they should have a measure of control. So the Data Protection Act that was passed in 2019 November does restore some of that control to the citizens and require transparency and accountability of the entities that are external to us that have our data. So I know the other panelists will be speaking on this point as well, but on that a little further, what we are saying is that the laws now require that these entities, in collecting and using, transferring, and handling the data, storing it, do certain things in order to be transparent. And also, they are going to be monitored by the Data Commissioner's Office for purposes of accountability, so that they have a duty to notify in the event of breach. They need to notify the concerned citizens as well as the Data Commissioner of any breaches. And they are going also to be subjected to a complaints mechanism, so that if there are any complaints touching on how they are handling that data, personal information, those complaints can be addressed. So there's also a dispute resolution mechanisms. There are penalties to be borne if those obligations are not taken seriously and carried out as required by law. So we've made some progress, and we are seeing that even corporations are having to put in place mechanisms for ensuring compliance with the law.
Wonderful. That's very beautiful, because it's actually touched on a lot of the aspects we'll be tackling that are a huge concern for those who process data, those who are regulating over data, those who are using data, and those whose data is being processed. And I think I'd like to also hand over now to Karemi to hear a little bit from your perspective. As Safaricom, also from your expertise in tech policy over the years, what are your thoughts around data and this question of exercising rights around it?
Thank you very much, Mercy. In fact, what I will do is actually just build on what Prof has already actually stated. So the first starting point is it's a discussion around privacy. And if you look at it, this is something that is actually, firstly, protected under the Universal Declaration of Rights, but in Kenya, it's actually protected under our Constitution. In our Constitution, we have this protected under Article 31 of our Constitution, which talks about the right to your privacy, and specifically in Clause D of Article 31, it talks about the privacy of your communication. Mm-hmm. Now, when we move over and we see then what the global trends have been, about a couple of years ago, there was a big hype around data protection, because the European General Data Protection Regulation, commonly referred to as GDPR, was coming into force. So when this came into force, it raised a lot of awareness, not just in Europe, but globally around what data protection is about, and why it is important to have these laws and these frameworks in place. Mm. So our Constitution required that we had a Data Protection Act, and we did not do it in the time frame that was put, but I believe the GDPR actually catapulted the Kenyan Data Protection Act, which was put in place in November last year. And it's actually a very good act. It's should I say, a very key or critical act when it comes to moving us into the new era of data. So it doesn't just only tackle digital data, it tackles all forms of data, but if you look at it from the perspective of where the world is moving, digital data is indeed the space where a lot of concentration is going towards, because we are no longer dealing with, should I say, information in a cabinet, which you just simply secure by turning a lock. Now, this information is available. It may be available locally, it can even be available maybe on a cloud server, so it becomes critical to ensure that this information is safeguarded in a particular manner. So for us as Safaricom, what we did is, in preparation for both compliance with GDPR and the Kenyan Data Protection Act, we put in place, or we had actually got a policy in place, but we comprehensively reviewed our data protection and data privacy policy to ensure compliance with the law, and incorporation of some of the principles such as fairness, transparency, limitation, data minimization, discussions around how we retain the data, and most importantly, security, integrity, and confidentiality of that information. So we have that policy in place, but in addition to that, we have actually also put in place a data protection office to ensure that all that we do is in compliance with the laid down processes, both GDPR and the Kenyan law. So we do have a data protection office in Kenya. And in addition to that, because I believe data protection, in order to safeguard data, it goes hand in hand with security. So it is also important to ensure that the information is secured and is kept it is kept away from unauthorized access by third parties. It's kept in a manner where you can always ensure its integrity. And for that, we also have a cybersecurity function that ensures this in Safaricom as well. In addition to that, of course, we comply with international standards and are also guided by ISO standards with respect to both information security and cybersecurity. And yes, I think that's what I can say for now. I'm sure there's more to add on. Thanks, Mercy.
That's a lot, and it's impressive to hear what Safaricom is doing in this space, in addition to hearing what Sylvia was sharing in regards to how we need to ensure transparency and protection of data, basically, and how data is handled in itself needs to be carefully addressed by all stakeholders involved. And to see the strides that you've taken as Safaricom to do this, including putting up a data protection office within the structure of Safaricom, is impressive, and hopefully it's something that can be emulated by others and might be already being done. I'd love to hear from Grace Bomu in regards to, when we look at the trends today, there's a lot of upcoming digital innovations and technologies. Many emerging data trends today are leveraging on digital space, basically, or growing their businesses based on digital data. And I'm just curious, do you think, from your perspective, are there any social and economic benefits as well as risks that you see with regards to these emerging data trends?
Thank you so much for the question and for what has been said before. I'd like to start by emphasizing one point with regard to data and rights. And this is the point of that human rights are interconnected, interrelated, and indivisible. And so let us not think about data only in terms of Article 31 and the right to privacy. Because in actual sense, when you think about it, data is affecting so many other rights, political rights. If you think about what happened in Kenya in 2017 and what people anticipate will happen with the next election, which people are saying already that is going to be a digital election, it also affects a lot of economic and social rights. And so it's very important that in all these things, we don't focus so much on Article 31 as if it's a standalone right. No, in fact, if you look at the matters that have been litigated to do with data and privacy, it wasn't just about privacy, it was also about other rights. It was also about the question of how far should the government, when it's issues like digital ID, should we open the gate for the government, or should the government remain at the road? I mean, for a middle class idea, for people who live in places where there are gates. Should the government come up to the compound, or should we also open the door? Should the government come up to the sitting room? And if there is a curtain that divides the sitting room and the bedroom, should the government also come up to there? Not only government, but also private sector, which is increasingly holding a lot of data. So let's not think about it only in terms of the right to privacy. Let's think about it in a very broad way, because it actually affects everything. And now, as we go further, people are even thinking about data not only in relation to the human, but also in relation to everything else, the planet. How much does processing data, big data, for example, the way companies like Safaricom are doing, how much does that affect the environment? Is that sustainable to do that forever and ever, or are we going to deplete our resources in this pursuance of data? And so I'd say that is the first thing I'd say. And then the second thing that I'd say very, very quickly is that we risk, as we go into this data economy, we risk becoming more and more and creating a bigger barrier between those who are in the know with regards to data and those who are either not in the know, but I can't say there's anybody who's not affected by data, because everybody is now a unit of production as far as the data economy is concerned. So, for example, what I find is a big risk from the work we've done with regards to the Act, at CPIT is that if we are not careful, this Data Protection Act can become a gate through which some enter and others are left behind. What do I mean by that? I mean that you've heard what Karemi has said about all the steps they've taken at Safaricom. Safaricom is a big data processor, it's a big... This is not the experience with a lot of small and micro. Some of them are a one-woman show. This person is doing programming towards April, between April and June, when KRA is coming for them, is when they hire an accountant to come and do for them their accounts and their tax returns. So can you imagine telling that person, oh, you also need to comply because there's this new law that requires you to do a data protection impact assessment and so on and so on and so forth. This becomes an extra cost of doing business, and there's a risk of not this person from participating in the data economy. And therefore, if you think about it in terms of economic and social rights, increasing for everybody to participate, if you think about it in terms of also the right to development and the right to participate in science and technology, then it's like you need muscle, you need financial muscle in order to compete in the data economy. So that is also something I'd point out as a risk.
Those are really insightful comments, and I think you raise very pertinent issues around the question of data. I think it sounds like what you're saying is that there's a very fine balance between making sure that we remain inclusive and at the same time making sure that we are creating an enabling environment for others who may not have the same muscle as others to be able to comply, yet at the same time continue to innovate or create data-driven technologies without any hindrance, yet minding the concerns that there may be around whatever risks there are. And I'm curious to hear from you, Prof. Are there is there any work, maybe research work or anything that's been done maybe from the academia side around weighing whether the emerging data-driven technologies are posing any risks, or have actually been, do we have any tangible benefits we can show from the use of data in creating emerging technologies?
Interesting in the sense that the ubiquitousness of, say, the internet or our habits on the internet, especially as Kenyans, since we know that the mobile economy may not have gone everywhere, but it has penetrated quite effectively in the country. I mean, even with our installation of the loons and all that, that's where the government wants us to go. And even with the issuance of the Huduma cards and all that, we are trying to make every citizen a participant in the digital economy and the digital space. Now, the challenge we have in studying this or in looking at this is that there are benefits, but there are also huge risks. So digital-driven technologies, you might think of them as, say, the ability of applications to collect business intelligence. How are customers? And yeah, we might discriminate and say there are small customers and big customers, but they are all targets of the app that might want to know how are people consuming, how are people behaving, what do they do when they go on the internet. That information is now out there. With every click, you can be tracked and somebody can know what you purchased, what you saw. Did you come back again? Did you like it? What aisle of the electronic shop did you visit, and so on? What activities are you engaged in? Well, the government might want that because, well, from a security point of view, maybe that advances. They're collecting information on national security. Business entities might want that because then they can sharpen their products and make sure that they're providing only that which consumers want, so they can track their behavior. So web tracking analysis is a research area in itself, and apps are being developed in that as well. Then there is the fact that now technology, gadgets can talk to each other, and people can be tracked in terms of if you're sent out to a job, you are an employee. your employer has information, which route did you follow? What time did you make the delivery? Have you aligned with the distribution agreement that the distributor has with the manufacturer and all that? So there is opportunities for efficiency, but there are also concerns we need to address about how invasive that can be, how much information is needed, how is it protected, and how is it shared? And also, importantly, does it have legal consequences? On the basis of that, can something harmful happen to somebody? Can there be economic effects in terms of decisions made on distribution of resources, on distribution, on income, on access? Can all that information be used when it's collected in harmful ways? And then there are international law security questions. When our data is collected in this way, say in cloud computing and stored elsewhere, what are the consequences that we are facing in terms of control of that data, in terms of being able to access it, in terms of it being commercialized, and so on? So web technology or data-driven technology might assist us in that. We might make Kenya, globally speaking, attractive, but we shouldn't deny that there is also a commercial side of it that might leave Africans in the global economy as usual exploited. So we need to be cognizant of these concerns, and some of that is the research that's being done, and of course we appreciate what Safaricom is doing to stem some of these problems, as well as what Sister Grace Bomu is also doing in terms of highlighting the disparities that might arise when these technologies are used. Take even, for example, now in education and access and delivering educational products through technology. How will it look like 20 years from now? What will be the literate Kenyan population look like when we are sourcing a lot of our educational materials through technology delivered or enabled processes? So there's that, and there's more to say. I'm not sure we are doing enough research, though. I would appeal that these areas need to be properly and effectively funded, and in the long term, because it's not possible to make research conclusions from just one instance. It takes the long term and sustained tracking of what's going on in order for people to generate effective policy or even laws. So I would end it at that and say, well, it looks like there are great efficiencies, yes, and they would serve business. But business, if we've learned anything, this COVID year also needs people, and we need to think about them as well.
That's very interesting to hear. And I think you, again, are touching on very interesting issues around data. It is clear there definitely are benefits, and at the same time, there are still risks that are seen with regards to data. I think a lot is being done in seeing how this can be resolved. The issue of regulation is obviously one that is constantly evolving and developing with thank you very much. We are back. I apologize for the interruption. You'll appreciate that in these virtual times, a lot of learnings are developing, but I bet you that we've improved a lot in regards to how we conducted conferences at the start of the pandemic, and now there's a lot of improvement. And so, again, this is a demonstration of what data can do in terms of, being able to have digitally enabled platforms like this to be able to connect on a conference this important. I was touching, though, on the iniquities that this might present, that Grace spoke about in very good detail in regards to the likes of organizations that are really small, that may not necessarily have the bandwidth to accommodate the costs of putting up a proper, say, data protection office, for instance. And wanted to hear from Karimi. What do you think one needs to do or needs to be done to foster access to data structures like the ones you have at Safaricom, and at the same time be able to foster competition and innovation? Okay, I think I can hand over that question back to Grace. You had elaborated very well about the fact that certain businesses may not have the financial muscles to be able to take on additional costs of ensuring, for example, they've set up, for instance, a data protection office. So I was curious to hear a little more around that in terms of what do you think needs to be done in order to foster or ensure equitable access to data and at the same time foster competition and innovation?
Thank you. So I think one way to go with this would be through the existing mechanism, which is the Data Protection Act. It is unfortunate the Data Protection Act does not provide for staggering of compliance with the Act. It expects everybody to comply since it was enacted. And as you can see, some have complied. Others are not even aware that there is anything like the Data Protection Act or that they need to have to put in place privacy, respecting and promoting technologies as they're developing them. So I think once the Data Protection Commissioner comes into office, this will be one way in which the should I call it oversight or this gap. Yeah, so one of the things that they would need to do is to, first of all, create awareness among micro, small, and medium enterprises on what data protection is and why these enterprises need to comply, and also create mechanisms for helping them to comply. Because, like I said, there are a lot of digital-based businesses that are one-woman or one-man shows, you know. So there's a need to think about that. I think another way to look into this gap is to be so focused on the commercial aspects. There is a possibility we should imagine a data economy that is also non-commercial. So we also need to, because even the way the law is framed, it looks a lot into the commercial aspect. You know, do this, the carrot and stick, do this, or else we will take part of your revenue, you know. But there could be businesses that are not, that are there for to solve a social problem, or there's also the government, which is for any commercial gain. So we also need to look into other mechanisms. In the ICT world, we looked at issues like community radio, and now looking at community ISPs or community networks. We also need to look at data for good from that aspect, from the community aspect. What happens if communities want to come together? What happens if people want to come up with things like data trusts? Yeah, how enabled to pursue their economic and social rights through these non-commercial methods. And I think these are things that we'll be seeing more and more, especially as we head towards the election and as people become more creative in order to provide products for the election.
Really helpful. And I love that we've touched on a lot of aspects on the question of data and exercising of rights. But to open up this conversation wider to involve the delegates, because there's a lot of questions already streaming in. You've seen me looking at my phone from time to time because there's just lots of questions streaming in fast and furious. A lot of them, there's aspects we've touched on, and I think there's just a lot of interest to clarify a little more. And the first question I'd like to share from the panelists, from the delegates, is a question from Francis Omondi. And he frames his question by stating the following. So I'll read it verbatim. Having a national spatial data infrastructure will go a long way in curbing losses during road constructions. It's embarrassing that utility lines aren't well defined, and in areas there is no discipline among the service providers to follow the utility lines. So the question is to Professor Sylvia. To what extent is the Data Protection Law 2019 governing geo-privacy in Kenya? Would you like me to take other questions as you ponder on that? Okay. The other question I have, and it's from Samuel. and it's open to any of the panelists to answer. How has the COVID disruption prepared us or not for the next big disruption, which is likely to be around cyber attacks? How has the COVID disruption prepared us or not for the next big disruption, which is likely to be around cyber attacks? And then I'll share a third question, and then we'll take a pause to allow for the panelists to answer before we go to the next set of questions. And this question asks, and it's from Pauline Karanja, how closely is ICT Authority working with Kenya Power as internet connectivity is highly dependent on electricity? How closely is ICT Authority working with KPLC or Kenya Power, as we know it today, as internet connectivity is highly dependent on electricity? I'm not sure that we have, if somebody would like to attempt that question, I'm happy to have that taken as well. And I'll pause there so that I can allow for the panelists to take the questions, and then we'll come to the next set. Over to whoever is ready. Maybe Prof, you could start.
Okay. So there is a question of infrastructure in data, because the data depends on infrastructure, whether it is movable or immovable infrastructure. That then means that there is a sense in which it depends on government, because data infrastructure is provided by the government, or at least licensed by the government. And by data infrastructure, we'll be talking of maybe cabling, which requires then public easements that have to be laid across territory. And territory is certainly a governmental question, and and control of territory is a governmental question. But it's not just territory that is land, but also territory that's spatial in the space, in the airspace. When we put out satellites out, or when government sovereigns do that, then they are exercising sovereign rights over territory, and that itself is governed both by domestic law and international law. So it is, and then also think of things just like cameras on streets and in cities, and how they collect your information as you're going about your business, and whether those are installed by the government for security monitoring, or whether they are installed by corporates. The corporates are also licensed by government. So yes, indeed, the question is good because it touches on geo-privacy. Other than the fact that the Data Protection Act, as it exists now, requires whoever it is that's collecting that information, whether it is through a camera, to handle it in compliance with the requirements of the Act, which is now at the end of the process. The creating of the infrastructure itself has already happened before the Data Protection Act has begun to regulate what happens to that data. So I think what needs to happen then is that our public land use planning that allows the intersection of geography and infrastructure, data and privacy, needs to come up to speed to this question. To my knowledge, it does not do that. A lot has been left Data Protection Act, and the Data Protection Act doesn't talk about infrastructure at the point of creation. It talks at the point of use, which then is a bit limiting because the act has already been accomplished, as raised in the question. In other words, we have a problem with the laws. The Data Protection Act will not control geo-privacy because that one is a different regime of laws.
I appreciate it. I wonder whether there's anyone else who would like to add on to that question.
Yes, Mercy. This is Karimi. I'd like to add on to that question. And I was actually going to state that it's not just the data protection law that is relevant when it comes to ensuring that there's protection. And specifically, it does not work in isolation. It works together.
We can hear you, but we can't see you anymore. Seems to be patchy network on your side, maybe. Can we, I think Grace wanted to weigh in on that question as well. Would you like to?
I would just have emphasized the same issue of interdependence and interrelatedness of issues, and also say that I'm glad that the government thinking of a policy for taking us to the digital era. Okay, we are already in the digital era, but a policy for harmonizing everything, because as somebody, one of the delegates has so rightly put it, there are also issues of power. As Prof has put it, it's not only a national issue, it's also an international issue. As Karemi was also trying to explain, there are so many other issues that come into play that, for example, for a long time, maybe even when we were making the constitution, maybe we thought that we'll have very little to do with information and communication. And so we put that on government thing. But when we're hitting the ground, literally, when you have to dig the ground for cabling or whatever, you have to talk to the counties. And so I am glad to that extent that we are now thinking of a policy or planning for a more harmonized and comprehensive moving together to the digital space. And maybe the only thing I'd add, as I invite people to also look at this of the digital economy blueprint, the so-called digital economy blueprint, and other policies that are being made by government, I urge people to also look at it from a rights perspective. How does it promote and enhance rights of people? Will it lead to better lives for people? Has that been taken into consideration, or have we thought about it as it is going to provide the environment? It is private. It is private sector to provide the services, and that is the end of the story. That we forgot how the person comes in. I also wanted to answer the question of cyber attacks and COVID, not comprehensively, but just state that I saw this item the other day about JKUAT. I know now on social media, JKUAT is trending, as the university where the T means technology, and, these children are actually learning how to hack and everything. But what I wanted to point out is that, yes, there have been so many cyber attacks. That's what the reports are saying. But on the other hand, we are seeing, because that story appears as if these kids are ethical hackers. And so it appears as if we need to rethink how we look at cyber security, and not look at it only from the point of cybercrime, but also think about it in terms of what do other stakeholders have to do with issues of cyber? What do people in universities who are learning about technology, who have a lot of, who may have a lot of skills on technology, what can they offer to make Kenya a better and a more cyber secure place? And so my hope would be that we look at cyber security as a multi-stakeholder thing, that we bring in technologists and stop focusing on only the crime part of it, and look at it in a more holistic way.
Awesome. I appreciate that. It's unfortunate we still aren't able to get Karemi back on, but she will definitely join in a few. To Professor, there's a question here from Nihal Shah asking, what is the role of an individual citizen in protecting their own data not being misused, and how can they be assured of the law? Might you be able to answer that for us?
Yes, thank you so much, Mercy. That's where we started, actually. Interesting, we go back to that. The problem with data is that it's out there. Unlike other documents you might have that are hard copy documents, you can lock them up, or you can put them in a safe deposit box. You can do things that you can't do with data, because data is intangible, it is out there. So the question is, does the citizen or the individual have some obligations to not put that information out there? That's really a difficult ask, because the information is required to do the most basic of things, such as get a national ID, you must put your information under the control of some other entity. To be admitted to a school, to go to hospital, to do all these things, to board a plane, your information is out there with somebody else. You do not have control over that somebody else. So that's why the Data Protection Act puts the obligation on the person who's a data collector or data processor to be custodian of the data in a way that is faithful to the citizen or the individual who has given it to them. Of course, we also have the other sector or the other spaces where people voluntarily put information about themselves out there, even though it is not necessary for them to do that. So what I would say is, beyond law, we need a cultural outlook that understands what personal information is. It may well be that our citizens don't appreciate that first, that it is personal information, it can be used to harm them. Second, how fast it travels and can be shared. Maybe people don't yet understand that, and maybe if they did more understanding and learning, and maybe if institutions took it upon themselves to provide guidance on that, then that problem would not be as serious as it is now. But also we need a cultural outlook where people don't just become for transferring the information that they know maybe shouldn't be transferred because it doesn't belong to them, and maybe because it could put someone else in jeopardy. We need to think for ourselves about our own data and the data of other citizens, and that we are keepers of each other in that regard.
Thank you so much. That is so well put. And unfortunately, we are at time. I would have loved to have Karemi finish off her thoughts, but I believe this is not the last time you'll be engaging with us, so feel free to continue sending in your questions, comments, and so on, and I believe that you will get responses to that. But I think the key takeaway from this is to be able to exercise your rights within the data space. I think what Prof has just finalized with is really key. You being able to empower yourself as an individual or user of data, or one that is giving information, knowing that, you know, like Grace earlier said, you're a unit of production, and it's very likely that your data will need to be put out there at some point by yourself, often obviously, is to educate yourself and to be aware of how to secure your data. Who you give control to is a lot of times already protected in law, and you being aware of those kinds of things is important so that you can empower yourself. There is a huge role being played already by government and its agencies and ministries in regards to putting together a proper policy and regulatory framework around these issues. Being as a good citizen, when there is invitations to publicly consult on these pieces of legislation, please feel free to chime in on those. They're important because then you're able to help shape and influence how this space that affects your rights is going to pan out for you going forward. Because again, like we said, data is one of those things that I think will continue to be part of our lives and even more integrated going forward, because that's how digital is evolving. And lastly, of course, for industry players, being able to self-regulate as much as possible when you're processing data, making sure that transparency is very clear to data users around how you're using the information, how you collect it, and who you're disclosing it to and sharing it is critical. And I think it's just making sure that all stakeholders basically are playing their role in ensuring that data and how rights are exercised around the issue of data is always one that is important and is upheld. So thank you so much. I hope this was useful for all of those who dialed in for this session. And again, like I said, we hope to engage with you offline on the same. So I appreciate you, and thank you so much, the panelists who are wonderful. And please feel free to engage with them as well after this. So I appreciate that, and thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of the IGF 2020. Bye.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. That was once again a fantastic and engaging panel discussion. We totally appreciate Mercy Ndegwa and the entire panelists for just taking us through exercising rights for data. And I hope that you have taken off a few information that you can be able to go and apply. And you can also ask all the questions that you want to ask in the chat room, and we'll definitely make sure that we engage you on the same. So thank you so much, Mercy and team, and thank you for being engaged with us. We totally appreciate. Now, we'd like also to appreciate our sponsors. We'd like to appreciate appreciate the Kenya Human Rights Commission. Thank you so much for partnering with us. We totally appreciate you. We'd like also to appreciate KICA. Thank you for your partnership. And we also want to appreciate the Association for Progressive Communications. Thank you so much. And also, definitely, we want to appreciate our convener, KICTANet. We totally appreciate you for your partnership, for working with us, and for making this platform possible. So thank you very much. All right. And our hashtag, this is KEIGF 2020. All right. So kindly go to the Twitter handle, and then you can put hashtag KEIGF 2020. So thank you, Kenyan Human Rights Commission. Thank you, KICA. Thank you, APC. You are stellar performers, and we totally appreciate your partnership. And we look forward to also walking through this particular journey together and engaging with you for the long term. So thank you very much. We want to get into another panel discussion, but I know that we have been seated for a while, and we definitely want to just make sure that the blood is flowing in the bones and that you're also having a wonderful time, all right? So I just want to check with my director if everything is ready, and I hope I can be able to hear. All right? So wherever you are, just pull back your seat. Right? Mr. Director, if you can just start it again. Start it again, and then we can be able to just get into that. So wherever you are, just pull your seat aside, and then we can be able to start the music slowly. All right? Make sure your bones are there. There you go. Here, here, and you move your mirror with you, all right? Here, here. Move with your mirror. Here, here. Move with your mirror. Here, here. Move with your mirror. Right. Move it to the side. Move your bones to the side. And what's happening around, make sure that you enjoy life, celebrate yourself, celebrate the success that you've had over the years, and even in this particular year, celebrate yourself. And this is what we do here as we have these discussions on the emerging issues of internet governance. We want to appreciate each other, and we also want to celebrate life, because life is short, and we want to work on collaboration and working together. So that's one of the things that we want to do. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you for also being tuned in to the Kenya Internet Governance Forum. This is where we keep it live, this is where we keep it locked, and this is where we have an engaging and enjoyable session, all right? I'd like to appreciate also, just one more time, our sponsors, Facebook, Safaricom, Communications Authority of Kenya, Kenyan Human Rights Commission, thank you very much. KICA, we totally appreciate you. And APC, that is Association for Progressive Communications. And definitely we also want to extend our appreciation and gratitude to our convener, that is the Kenya ICT Action Network, And this has been powered by CIO East Africa. We totally appreciate each and every one of you, all right? We have 2 more panel sessions that are going to be very, very engaging. And now we've been discussing about data, but now we want to discuss about trust, all right? And the main discussion is going to be on defense and protection against cyber threats. Cyber threats has become a huge, huge discussion. We definitely don't want to expose our data. We don't want anyone accessing our information. It's private information, and it can cause more harm when it's out there. So definitely that's one of the discussions that we want to discuss. And we have an amazing panel that is going to be here on board with us, all right? So we want to discuss about what policy measures can be taken, all right, for protection and prevention. So what about the policy measures that can be taken? Another discussion will be on what kind of collaboration is needed among stakeholders to promote trust online. Right? I know there is one country that is having an issue in terms of accessing data. They cannot access Twitter, they cannot access Facebook, because it is a government policy that has been passed to that particular country. So we want to see how can we be able to partner together, the public sector and the private sector, and what policies can be passed to ensure that there is more trust online. So that's one of the things that we also want to discuss. And also another topic that we want to discuss, and the reason why I'm just passing this to you is so that we can also mentally prepare ourselves so that we can get into that particular session, all right? And one of the things that we'll also discuss is what role can the implementation of principles, safety by design, privacy by design, and default as a principle to secure human rights and achieve increased safety, okay? So think it through, all right? Chat us, go to the hashtag, put your questions in there, follow us, follow for follow, and we'll make sure that we follow you back, and then we shall come back here and have that discussion. But for now, we want to play one of the sponsor videos that have been able to be set up. So thank you for being engaged, thank you for being amazing, thank you for staying awesome, and thank you for keeping here at CIO East Africa, all right? Asante sana, my name is Ian Merore, and stay engaged and stay tuned. Thank you.
As Kenyans, we don't waste a chance to perform. When we moved from analog to digital, we took the opportunity to share our talanta. And the rise of local radio represented our voices mtaani. And now, in these difficult times, free educational shows are helping our children learn from home.
Mawasiliano kwetu, nguvu kwako. Communications Authority of Kenya. Opening your world.
KICTANet is a registry charged with the sole responsibility of administering, managing and operating our country code top-level domain, that is .ke. Our vision at KICTANet is .ke for every organization and name in Kenya. The core values at KICTANet are passion, efficiency, diversity, excellence and trust.
What marketing department does at KICTANet is to create an enabling environment for Kenyans to access the .ke domain online. So as a business, as an individual, as a learning institution, how do you take your brand online? How do you take your brand to the next level? Basically, this starts with subscription to the .ke domain and launching your website. Once you do this, the value adds you get to your brand are that you brand yourself uniquely Kenyan, you're protecting your brand online, it also speaks to the credibility of your company.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for staying engaged, and thank you for shaking that leg out and in. We're glad to have you here with us. As discussed, we're going to discuss about trust, and the panel discussion that we want to have is defense and protection against cyber threats. And to take us through this particular panel is a man who has one pleasant personality. I wish I knew him sooner, all right? He's got the most pleasant personality. He is a man who loves just spending time with people and interacting with people. He is a lecturer at Multimedia University, Kenya. This is none other than John Walubengo, who is going to come here, introduce the panel, and then is going to take you through this particular panel discussion. So thank you for staying engaged. Keep it here and see you soon. Over to you, John. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ian, for that introduction. My name is John Walubengo. I'm a lecturer at Multimedia University. My role here is very simple, to take you through the third panel. I believe we have a very exciting team of panelists. One is a colonel, another one is a diplomat. So in case there's any fire, the two will equalize that out. But we are also joined by the CEO of KICA, whom we hope will take us through this exciting session, which dovetails into the morning sessions, particularly the one you had just previously with Mercy from Facebook. Our focus today will be on cybersecurity. How do we improve our cyberspace? Some of the things that we hope to cover include what policies, what procedures should we have in place, particularly at a national level, to make sure that our sovereign national space is secure. We also are going to look at what are the safety, the privacy by design mechanisms we can explore, particularly from a human rights perspective. And perhaps we'll touch a bit on the Huduma aspects. What role can we have, or what design mechanisms can we put in Huduma to make sure that the human rights of the citizens are protected, even as we capture the citizen data. The other thing we'll look at is the multi-stakeholder role that we need to put in place, particularly knowing that cyberspace has very many actors, and no single actor can really address all those complex issues. Finally, our panelists are going to also look at how the private sector, authorities in the public sector can also collaborate to make sure that we increase the trust in the cyberspace. So without further ado, I want to ask our panelists to introduce themselves, and then we take it up from there. I'll start with, I can see the diplomat. Let me start with the Honorable Consulate. Please introduce yourself. And then we'll go to the CEO of KICA, and finally the colonel from the National Cybersecurity Command.
Thank you, John. Good morning, all. My name is Kadri Humalayal. I'm the Honorary Consul of Estonia in Kenya. I've lived in Kenya for 25 years, so this is very much home for me. So when I speak of my country, very often I refer to Estonia, and very often I refer to Kenya as my country. Thank you.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to all our panelists and audience. My name is Joel Karobio, Chief Executive Officer of Kenya Network Information Center, popularly known as KICA, and we are mandated to manage and administer the country top-level domain code for Kenya. Thank you very much.
Karibu sana.
Yes, good morning. My name is Colonel Ivan Sombati, the Director, National Cyber Command Center, responsible for ensuring that our national cyberspace is safe and the coordination of government cybersecurity activities. Thank you.
Thank you. So participants, you can see we have a high panel of esteemed panelists. The way we'll do this, we only have 45 minutes. So I'll give each panelist just 5 or 6 minutes to share their thoughts on these important thematic areas. Then after that, we shall take questions from the floor. As Ian mentioned earlier, you should start typing those questions even as the discussions continue, so that after they have shared their views, we can then engage with you. I would have started with Colonel, but I'm told his background is having some echo. Is it okay now? Okay, I think they have cleared that. So we'll start with Colonel. Give us your 5 or 6 minutes thoughts. Then we shall move on to the Honorable Consulate. And finally, I'll go to Joel. Colonel, over to you.
Thank you very much. First of all, I wish to thank KICTANet and the organizers of this forum for inviting me to speak on this issue for internet governance in Kenya. It's important to appreciate that ICTs, as we call them, have brought a new operating environment for both nation states, organizations, individuals, both in Kenya and globally. And in this respect, therefore, it is an environment that we also need to look at in terms of protection. And with that aspect, while appreciating that ICTs are good for socio-economic development, we also appreciate that new threats are emerging in that environment that threaten the data. And data is what we call the national resource. It is data that we use for national planning, for strategic planning, and also even for security. So in this regard, I wish to appreciate that the National Cyber Command Center that was created as an outcome from an advice from the National Security Council to national to oversee the nation's secure ICTs and implementation. First, I want to appreciate that the National Cyber Command Center is a multi-agency of the cross-cutting nature of cybersecurity issues and efforts, and incorporates various agencies, including the Ministry of ICT, Ministry of Defense, KICTA, CA, CBK, among many others. On that we are dealing with today, I appreciate that everyone wants to be assured while using ICTs, that the internet is protected, that the ICTs are safe, and the data that they are sharing in there is taken care of in a manner that does not bring hackers, bring any other person from its misuse, harassment, and any unauthorized activity. It's in that regard that I consider security as a fundamental requirement for trust, and the need for all of us to, think and act and conduct all internet-related businesses, including implementation of ICTs in a secure manner. Activities that we do here in Kenya, all infrastructure must be secured. And I think I wouldn't want to say much, but we want to imagine that everybody is concerned and everybody must take a certain role in ensuring that security. From the individuals, the Kenyans that are sharing that data, the organizations that are holding or processing or managing that data, to the national government, whose main role is to ensure that our remains stable, our businesses remain stable, and our country remains secure at all times. So I wouldn't want to talk much. I want to give it open that the government of Kenya is very keen in promoting all aspects of ensuring that our national cyberspace is protected. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Colonel. Your office was established, I think, 2 years ago, 2018, after we passed the Computer and Misuse Act in 2018. So I believe you probably have been around for 1 or so years. Could you share with our participants your take? Do you think our cyberspace is secure today than it was 1 year ago? What challenges is your office facing in terms of protecting our national cyberspace?
Well, thank you for that question. One of the things that is there is that creating such an establishment requires time. And because of the very nature of ICTs and the emerging new technologies every day, there has been quite a number of challenges. But that said, we've also made quite a number of advances, especially in coordination, because the National Cyber Command Center has been coordinating most of the issues with ICT Authority, with Communications Authority, the Cyber Security Branch, that is the KICTAnet, with very many, including KICA here, including the Ministry of ICT, to try and harmonize the efforts towards ensuring a safe nation state. But far and wide, I'll want to confirm that our nation state is still behind in ensuring that we have security controls to manage any arising issues from the cyber environment.
Thanks a lot, Colonel, for that feedback. I now want to turn our attention to Honorable Kadri. With your experience from Estonia, Estonia has been quite a success story in terms of implementing cybersecurity at a national level. And I just want to hear perhaps the way Estonia may have balanced the often conflicting objectives of government collecting data vis-a-vis the human right requirements to ensure that private or that citizen data is actually not abused. So over to you, Honorable Kadri.
Thank you very much, John, and thank you very much for this great event and the invitation to be in this particularly distinguished panel. On the topic, I would actually start on the aspect of trust, and I will start by quoting Linnar Viik, Estonian information technology scientist, e-governance practitioner, and visionary. And he says, "We are building trust step by step, service by service, communication by communication. Trust is like a sand dune on the beach. Every single grain in it is actively part of this process. And there might be wind or a wave, and these could take away some of the trust. Slowly, you'll start to put the grains back together and build trust again. And the most interesting point is that those small components are not at all dedicated to the regulatory environment or the technology aspects, but much rather to the people's personal experiences." End of quote. And so trust is an essential prerequisite for creating a secure digital environment where people can make meaningful transactions in confidence. A great example is mobile payments. In Kenya, people trust the service and the company providing it. It is reflected in the success of the story of M-Pesa. And as we are moving towards developing a fully digital economy here in Kenya, the challenges and cyber threats, as outlined by the Colonel, will certainly increase. And this is the reason I believe it is crucial to proactively work on the trust factor by implementing already proven solutions known, such as trust services, such as National Mobile Identity Solution, to strengthen Kenya's position as digital trailblazer. In regard to protection and prevention, I believe the following is essential today to strengthen the trust factor and to prevent cyber threats from damaging our economy, while keeping in mind that Kenya is a mobile-first country. We have to facilitate policies to implement national mobile digital identities.
The reason for this is simple. Identity in general, whether it is in the physical or the digital world, is the cornerstone of all legal interactions between people, businesses, and the state. In the modern digital world, people's ability to prove who they are using national digital identities issued by the government is a must for conducting e-banking, accessing e-services, and other countless e-transactions. For example, when going to a bank, we cannot conduct transactions without being sure of the counterparties present. This is, in the physical world, government-issued documents that have to be presented. When using the same bank's e-services, we should equally use a government-issued mobile ID, a digital equivalent in the mobile-first approach. If Kenya wants to benefit from such well-known security practices, then policy measures that facilitate the implementation of such should be accelerated. That is in regard to e-signatures, Huduma number usage, and the tools for the wananchi to make use of these facilities. Safety by design, privacy by design are in principle great concepts. They become tools when indeed there is critical digital infrastructure to support them, where the citizens are able to verify who, how, and when is using, viewing, or altering their data. To achieve this, I believe, as John mentioned,
let me just
private-public partnerships.
Let me seek clarification. Are you saying that our current national digital ID, as implemented through Huduma number, is perhaps old technology based on mobile first? I don't know if you heard me.
Well, yes, thank you, John. Thank you for asking for that clarification. I would say that understanding Kenya as a country, understanding Kenya that uses mobile first, plastic second, where there are more Kenyans that have mobile phones than have bank accounts. There are more Kenyans that have mobile devices as opposed to desktop or laptop devices. When implementing ID cards, where one would need to have a desktop device with which to plug in a reader to use, indeed, one would ask, is implementation of mobile ID more beneficial in a country where probably only 5, maximum 10% of the population could make use of digital card readers? One would indeed ask, would mobile ID or smart ID be better for connecting into trust service providers?
Yes, thank you so much. I can see Joel has been on standby to have his 5 minutes of fame. Please, you have the chance now. Joel, for some of you, he introduced himself and talked about KICTAnet, but I know in the list of participants we have students from our school of the KICA, the Kenya School of Internet Governance. KICTAnet is basically an entity that is able to register your internet name or your domain name. And at a national level, we are very happy to have the CEO of our national registry, Joel, to share his thoughts about these cybersecurity issues. Over to you, Joel.
Thank you, John, for inviting me and attending this event today. Mine will be very brief remarks, but I would not do justice to this conversation without just giving a brief, as you've said, about what domain, because then domain names then have a linkage to the internet and security around the internet that we're talking about. So if you allow me, I'll just give 1 minute brief of domain names and KICTA, and then how this links to this conversation that we're having. So as KICTA, and as I mentioned in my introduction, as a Kenya Network Information Center, we've been created to manage and administer the .ke, which is a country code top-level domain. So basically what that means is each country is given a code. So in Kenya, it's KE. For my friend Kadri, it's EE, Estonia. So every country is given a two-letter code, and that is your unique identifier on the internet. Thereafter, every country is then asked or pushed to ensure that its citizenry then use that country code for its internet identification. Now in Kenya, through .ke, then we then push the domain name business and ensure that as many Kenyans as possible are on it. A domain name is basically a string of names. So the same way numbers on your phone, since you can't remember 1,000 numbers on your phone, you give those numbers a name. So it's the same way we have an IP address at the back end, which usually is 192.something. Now, instead of you remembering 192, remember a name. So for example, on the panel, I can see Safaricom, Communications Authority, Facebook. At the back of those names, there's a number. So instead of remembering the number, they've allowed you just to remember Safaricom. Now what Safaricom does, then it takes Safaricom, which is its business name, it adds .co, which is a string for companies, then .ke, which shows that they're in Kenya. So what a domain name does, it just shows that identification. So Safaricom, the business, .co, it's a company, .ke, it's in Kenya. And we have many strings or extensions. One can be for businesses, for government. So for government, we have, for example, .go.ke. So GO stands for government, and many others. At the moment in Kenya, we have 9 extensions of the same. Now, why do I give this brief introduction? Because domain names, we believe, is a gateway to the internet. And once you're on the internet, your identification on the internet is known through that domain name. Now, to our discussion today, and security and trust. The first thing you should always have or always do is have a domain name that is trustworthy. So people by your domain name on the internet. So if you are actually having transactions like our ambassador has talked about, if it's e-commerce, if it's e-signatures, those are the things that are happening on it. And how will someone be sure or confident that they are dealing with the right person? It's through the domain name that you are using to show who you are. Now, coming to our discussion there about trust and the online trust. This area that the ecosystem has tried to deal with quite a bit, and the Colonel mentioned the key aspect that we are looking at, and as KICTA is part of the players, is a multi-stakeholder model that allows all of us to talk in one unified direction around what trust looks like. So there are very many agents dealing with online activities, a lot of who are in this forum today, but we all need to talk the same language. We all need to have policies that work for us. So when we're looking at the internet space and the threats that are there, the first thing we always say, and I say to my teams and anyone I talk to, first, the internet and trust around the internet is a personal responsibility. It starts with you and what you are posting on the internet. There's this wise saying, I don't know who said, the internet never forgets. Your footprint will always be somewhere. So how do you ensure that your footprint is trustworthy within the internet space? Then 2, how are you getting onto the internet? What platforms are you using? And then ensuring that people on the internet understand who you are. So as KICTA, and just in summary, as critical government infrastructure, our role is to ensure that we are reliable, we are resilient, and we are ensuring that we are stable. Internet is actually 100% up and running. So just to start off the conversation, there has to be a backbone, which is the gateway to the internet, and then what is happening thereafter. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Joel. As you rightly said, KICTA is an entity that allows us to register our internet domain name in this country. So basically everybody or anybody who wants presence with a .ke identity has to go through your office. And that places you and the entity at the center of what we call multi-stakeholder approach to some of these cyberspace issues. So it will be critical that it will be critical for KICTA to basically leverage, so to speak, that privileged position of being able to register a wide spectrum of internet players. Viewers, I think we have done the first session where our panelists shared their views. If you joined us late, we have panelists who one is from the National Cyber Command Center, and the other one is from KICTA, the CEO of KICTA, and we have the Honorable Ambassador Kadri from Estonia. And we want now to move into the second part where we open the floor for questions. So I don't know if we have any questions from the floor. Yes, we do. Let me just pick one and throw it to the panelists. The first one goes to Kadri, and it says, what would you say propelled Estonia? To the level of internet coverage that it has, and how safe is the Estonian cyberspace? That's a question from Twahir Hussein. Thank you for that question. And as Honorable Kadri prepares for an answer, I want to also read a question going to Colonel, the head of our National Command Center. And the question, this coming from DJ Coman to the Colonel, says, how do you strike the balance between security and privacy? Secondly, regulation tends to follow innovation, and you are afraid that we are always lagging behind in terms of technological advancement in order to sacrifice privacy. So those are the two questions I have for now. Let's start from Kadri.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Twahir, for that question. So I will start off by, maybe I'll start off from the security side, because that, I think, is a question that is very often asked. Very many countries cannot affirmatively say how safe is their cyberspace. However, Estonia is one of the countries that can definitely say that globally, Estonian cyberspace is one of the most secure there is. The reason for this is that in the year 2007, Estonia suffered the first ever known global attack on its cyber infrastructure. We had an attack that was launched from Russia. It was a denial of service attack. And from 2007 onwards, Estonia has implemented the most stringent security measures when it comes to cyber space. Estonia put cyber into its defense portfolio almost immediately thereafter. Estonia is the country that initiated the setup of NATO Cybersecurity Center of Excellence headquartered in our capital, Tallinn. We openly invite hackers to launch attacks on our infrastructure, on our systems. We have been holding voting through internet from 2005. We have not experienced any interference in our elections, in our voting systems. We have, of course, implemented a number of systems that allow us to stand where we stand, including use of an equivalent of blockchain from the year 2008 onwards. At that point, it was called hash-separated timestamp system, with the secure logins into Estonian, all Estonian services are logged in with the use of either mobile ID or a smart ID card. We have implemented e-signatures as a form of confirming transactions on internet from 2001. And so these are some of the things that we have done that allow us to say that our cyberspace is among the most secure in the world. And so how did Estonia get where we are now? We actually started our path in the year 1994, when the first blueprint for Estonian digital society was created. We had something that we called Tiger Leap, a 1998 initiative where all schools were connected to broadband connectivity, and internet was as a way of ensuring that both young people as well as grown-ups were fully familiar with what it can do, what the opportunities are. And many of the people who are currently in Estonian digital space, founders of Bolt, as the founders of Skype, as the founders of TransferWise, or any of the other global leading internet startups, they were beneficiaries of learning technology straight away from school. And it takes digital leadership, it takes political leadership, as well as well-educated and visionary citizens to have this happen. Thank you.
A lot, honorary consulate, for those experiences from Estonia. I want to turn back to Colonel Ombati. How do we balance privacy and security?
Well, I want to mention that the two terms are intertwined, and you can't separate one from another. But it is always good for me to mention that without security, you cannot afford to enjoy any privacy. In other words, the other one you enjoy, and the other one you must implement. So as a country, Kenya, we must ensure that all our critical infrastructures are secure, all our networks in which information is being transmitted through are secure, all our applications that are being used by the public and private entities provide the security mechanisms as per the laws that exist and as per the international standards. By so doing, you will provide some trust to the users who are the Kenyan populace and other users around the globe to be comfortable to use them. And another requirement is that all those infrastructures that are in place that we are relying on as a country must be compliant to security requirements. And these are either the international standards, the national regulations as per the Data Protection Act, or any activities that are, identified that look illegal or are malicious, tracked, and perpetrators are either prosecuted so that we can be able to manage any issues arising from it. So in other words, you can't have privacy without security, and we must trust government because it's the sole provider of security for the country. Besides, all of us have a role to play as individuals, organizations, and as a country at large.
So in other words, our national gateways must have some bit of security. Our national networks must have some bit of security. Our ISPs, our critical infrastructures, including KICTA, must implement some bit of security so that holistically we are able to have, we call it controlled security, leveled security. Up to the users, they must be able to practice some level of hygiene in the access and use of the ICTs to be able to be comfortable that whatever they share cannot be used maliciously against them. Besides that, you've also asked about regulations tends to follow innovation. This is the case world over. Regulations will come to manage a number of things. However, in our case here, we are to plan and look futuristic, so that our policies, our ICT policies, our cyber security strategies do not just look for 1 year. They look for more than 5 years, 10 years, so that we are able to remain focused on emerging issues. Besides that, you've also asked a question about aspects of sacrifice for privacy. I didn't get that question very well. Maybe you can repeat so that I can be able to address it.
No, I think because of time, we have to start winding up. Actually, we've gone beyond the time by 10 minutes. I think I want to thank our esteemed panelists, starting with Colonel Ombati, the head of National Cybersecurity Command Center. Next to him is Joel, who is the CEO of KICTA, and our honorary consulate, Kadri from Estonia. It's been a pleasure sharing your deep thoughts about our cyberspace. And I also have to thank our participants. Keep sending the questions on the list in the chat or in the Q&A sections. I'm sure the session is only halfway. In the course of the day, most of your questions will be done and answered. Asanteni.
But ladies and gentlemen, I'm confident that you're having a fantastic and wonderful time, right? And we are thankful also to John Walbengu and the other panelists for taking us through that particular discussion of defense and protection against cyber threats. So I hope you're staying engaged, and we totally appreciate just having you here and engaging us in this session. This is definitely a session that is going to transform all of us as we proceed, all right? So again, we also want to appreciate our proud sponsors. We have KICTA, we have the Association for Progressive Communications, and we have the Kenya Human Rights Commission, all right? And also we have Facebook and Safaricom and the Communications Authority of Kenya. We want to say thank you. And please kindly just put your Wi-Fi on, make sure that it stays connected. Go to the hashtag. Our hashtag is KEIGF 2020. Make sure that you stay logged in, tweet as hard as you can, and then you can be able to proceed from there. Before we go into the next panel discussion, again, we want to make sure that this is a session that is going to have some rhythm. The blood has to be flowing, and you have to be enjoying yourself. Life is short. Celebrate every moment. And out of that, I want you to just stand up wherever you are. If it's in the sitting room, in the office, wherever you are, even if it's in the car, just close your windows, put the AC on, and then let's get a little bit of rhythm and jig in there. All right? So I'll ask Mr. Director if you can put the lovely song for us. Right, as he puts it on, just make sure that we want to celebrate life. And ladies and gentlemen, we totally appreciate you being part of the Kenya Internet Governance Forum, okay? And this is a forum where we are just discussing about the emerging issues in regards to internet governance, all right? And this is where it's been a perfect platform where we're bringing the public sector and the private sector together to have this kind of engagement and having a discussion on how we can be able to take it forward from there. And I know our next panelist will discuss about enhancing better internet access. How do we do that? How do we enhance that? Okay, and we will just also discuss on how we can be able to tackle the affordability issues. We want to ensure the inclusion of communities with technologies, all right, to bring about change, because I know technology is definitely changing our lives every day. Everything is becoming digital. Everyone's smartphones is a smart world, all right, and we want to make sure that everyone is included on this particular journey, not just in one region, but the entire country, the entire region, as we catch up with the rest of the world. So we want to make sure that we are good to go. So wherever you are, just put your seat aside and let's get a little bit of rhythm in the system, okay? Mr. Director, good to go? Right? We'll start the song from the top so that we can be able to just make sure that we're on board. All right. Put your seat aside. Add a little volume wherever you are.
Yes.
In the director's table at home. Okay. All right? Just add a little volume wherever you are. Okay?
Okay.
We're good to go? Good to go. All right. Okay?
Nice.
Soul in the knees. DJ, let's have a little bounce over there. Put it here and you come up. Put it down and you come up. Put it down and you come up. And then you point. Point at the lovely people. One thing about music is just enjoying the flow, alright? And you bring it down and up. And to the new, all right? Fantastic. Thank you very much, guys. Let's have fun and engage each other. This is a different forum. We're doing it differently, and we want to stay connected. So at this point, I would love, and I am honored and privileged to have the opportunity to invite our moderator. He is the Director of Programs at African Youth Commissions. This is none other than Keith Andere. Stay tuned. Over to you, Keith, and come and take it here. All right? So let's keep it here and let's keep it engaged. And also, before as Keith is coming, we would like to also appreciate our convener. That is the Kenya ICT Action Network. We appreciate you for convening this session, and also CIO East Africa. This session is powered by CIO East Africa. So Keith is ready to take you through enhancing better internet access. As I had mentioned, we was going to discuss about affordability issues, we're going to discuss about strategies, and we're going to ensure how we can have inclusion in the other communities. We have an amazing panelist that is going to come on board, and we are good to go. All right? So over to you, Keith. Thank you so much. Stay tuned and keep it here, keep it locked, keep it fun. Thank you.
Welcome to the yet another exciting session of the Kenya Internet Governance Forum. In this session, we are going to talk about digital inclusion, and digital inclusion is one of the most thematic pillars of this discussion today. This simply because digital inclusion is actually the driver of the recovery post-COVID for the Kenyan economy. And with us today, we are going to be joined by very brilliant panelists. We have two panelists who are on standby, and we're going to be joined by a third panelist. But what is digital inclusion? Digital inclusion is all about the people who are still remaining in underserved communities, in unserved areas, who need to come on board and actually be part of internet processes by having access to internet processes. But that is not it all. The issue of affordability. I mean, since Corona came around, how many times have you used internet? Internet, we've seen we are using it more than we ought to have used it before. We are now using it in education. We're now using it connecting to mama mbogas, connecting to the bodas, connecting to these other service providers. And we are seeing that now more than ever, the system is more interconnected in terms of work, how we view work, working from home. But so many people today are not even able to join on this forum because they don't have the quality data that can sustain, this session from start to the end. So today, we hope that you can actually join in. It's all about you guys in mashinani, and we are hoping that you can join in with sending the questions and comments. Follow through our Twitter. The hashtag is KEIGF2020. I hope my panelists are ready, and we're looking forward to a very great session. Thank you very much, and welcome on board. Panelists? Thank you. I see Judy, or Peter, and Paul. Good afternoon. I hope you are all well, and we are going to have a great session. So to just start us off, we are going to give you at least 2 minutes each, so you can start off with a round of introduction, tell us where you are coming from, how you connect to digital inclusion, and then we can dive into the flesh of this discussion today. I'll start with the ladies first, and for that reason, Judy, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Keith. Hello, everyone. My name is Judy Okite, founder, Association for Accessibility and Equality. And what we deal with is inclusion for persons with disability into the digital space, to ensure that we have content that is accessible to persons with disability, to ensure that persons with disability understand their rights when it comes to ICT. And also we do auditing. We do accessibility auditing on physical spaces to ensure that they're also accessible enough for persons with disability. And also we do audits regarding the websites, the contents that are online. And so apart from that, also a trainer with the Diplo Foundation. I train internet governance and ICT policy and strategic planning. And I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're really looking forward to, learn about how we are bringing on board persons living with a disability. How do we push on the issue of capacity building you've talked about? How do we also ensure that they're also connected onto the internet at their very places of life? Paul, next to you. I know you're coming from the regulator, the Combination Authority, and we are looking forward to talk about Universal Service Fund, because that is what it is speaking to. But I'm not here to preempt your introduction. Please take it away.
Good afternoon. My name is Paul Kiage. I work for the Communications Authority of Kenya in a department called Universal Service Fund. And as been said by the facilitator, the government is committed to ensuring that all Kenyans have access to ICTs. And in the year 2009, an act was amended to create a universal service fund to be managed and administered by the Communications Authority of Kenya. So one of the objectives of the fund is to ensure persons with disabilities, including other vulnerable groups, have access to ICT facilities. So the fund is primarily financed by the licensees through a small levy which they pay annually out of their gross annual income. And from that fund is what we utilize to deploy infrastructures in what we classify to be unserved and underserved areas. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will be joined by our third panelist, Diana from Kenya Human Rights Commission. But as she joins on, I'll come back to Judy and really want to find out what is the state of digital inclusion on the country? To what extent would you say that the persons living with a disability are actually engaged on issue of internet governance, issues of decision making around internet policy, around internet regulation here in Kenya.
All right, thank you, Keith. I'll start with our national ICT policy. When we look at our national ICT policy 2016, it actually has very clear engagement for persons with disability. And where we fail is at the implementation. That is where our biggest challenge is as a country. If you'd allow me just to read something that is in that the National ICT Policy 2016, it actually states that the government will, where appropriate, take measures to A, ensure that ICT services and emergency communications made available to the public are provided in alternative accessible formats for persons with disability. B, review existing legislation and regulations to promote ICT accessibility for persons with disability in consultation with organizations representing persons with disabilities, among others. And C, promote design, production, and distribution of accessible ICT at an early stage. And it goes on and on. And of course, in paperwork, it's really beautiful, but where we are lacking is at the place of implementation. Who is to ensure that what we have in the ICT policy is actually implemented? And of course, it begins even with the government. How much of our services, our government services, now that everything has gone online, how much is that is accessible? How much content that the services is that the government is providing is accessible? So we still have a lot of work, and probably even at a later point, I'll just say, maybe we need to divide the national ICT policy and bring it into small portions of policy. For example, we could have a web accessibility policy. We could have mobile communication accessibility policy, so that we go implementing step by step, so that we don't come out and say, this policy is not being implemented, but there are bits that are being implemented that we can follow up on.
Thank you, Judy. And I like your last point where you talk about, breaking down the national ICT policy, not only at county level, but even at thematic level. And this is where I'll actually like to bring in Paul as the government representative with us today. Paul, ever since Corona came around, we've seen a lot of uptake of internet at home. This is to enable working from home, enable children to also learn from home. But to what extent would you say that, one, internet has been affordable to the majority of the people who we know currently, as it stands, majority of the Kenyans are actually living under the dollar. And this is not what, a substantive internet will cost to have. What do you have to say?
Thank you so much for that question. I agree that there could be a number of barriers to affordability to broadband or internet services, one of which could be relating to the prices for those smart devices which people use to access internet. There could also be challenges of ICT literacy among the populace in Kenya, which could also be a barrier. And then the spread of the penetration of ICT services across the country. At the moment, the coverage for 3G is in excess of about 78%. That leaves about 22% of the Kenyan population not served. And when it comes to 4G, you could find the gap is even wider. So I agree that to some extent we need to have some deliberate policies to ensure that the bulk of the population is covered through the available networks in the country. And that's where the fund has been utilized to support the rollout of ICT infrastructure among the marginalized populations, particularly in the northern region of Kenya, where the operators find them economically unviable to invest in those areas. So the fund has been availed, and I just wanted to maybe mention that during the first phase of the USF implementation, we deployed infrastructure in 78 sublocations across the marginalized counties, and we've just finalized and awarded another 101 sublocations for connectivity. So I believe these are interventions by the government to ensure that ICT facilities or internet is availed across the populations in Kenya. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul. We see our third panelist, Diana, has actually joined us, and she is from the Kenya Human Rights Commission. Diana, welcome on the session, and I'd like to give you the honors and give you 2 minutes to do a brief introduction, and then I'll give you some time to set in and give us some perspective.
Yes.
I hear you with a bit of an echo. Can you hear me?
Yes, sorry. Yes, I can hear you. Please go ahead and do your introduction.
Great. Okay, thank you very much. I am Diana Gishengo, and I work on matters of identity and inclusion. And of course, we are all we all agree that the internet has contributed in bringing some level of transformation, if you like, a revolution of sorts. But in addition to the issues that have particularly been raised by Paul of infrastructure and just general literacy, we also remain concerned about just general issues of digital identity. And whereas the internet is able to create a digital footprint for anybody, a digital identity mainly originates from legal identity. If you look at Kenya and as compared to other countries in the region, we are only close to maybe competing with Nigeria, South Africa in terms of internet. When it comes to issues of legal identity as well, those are the very same states and Rwanda that come close to where we are in terms of just issuance of birth certificate as a basic identity document, issues of national ID. That's where we compete. And our ID is old enough. There was not always great utility for the ID. It has grown with time. Same for the birth certificate. When schools started making demands that students must have birth certificate, then Kenyans had to take up that form of identity. Previously, birth certificates were for the elite, people who needed to take out medical insurance, people who needed to apply for passport, but now it's a basic meant for it. But those who are left out behind, back then when we started, when there was no demand for it, are still behind. And literacy level, demand for education and the push for education across the country is different. So that particular problem we had then, and now it is coming, it is moving with us as we move to the digital transformation. In addition to the communities I have indicated who just never knew why they needed an ID, we also have communities who lacked an identity and are considered stateless. We had the Makonde, who the president finally granted citizenship, but we still have scores of other communities. So even as they get online, anywhere where they need like a proper identification, then they have to adopt somebody who helps them. So that is one of the areas that needs that digital identity is critical for digital inclusion. The minute we are able to identify everybody conclusively, including persons with disability, that way the digital footprint is created around what they need, what they are able to do, and then what they need to be facilitated to have the same level of access as somebody who is able differently. So that level of analysis and is required within our
Welcome back, viewers. We sincerely apologize for the technical hitch that we are having, but well, this speaks to the actual theme of the session, Internet for Human Resilience and Solidarity. So we hope that we're actually learning some of these glitches and some of ways to actually be innovative when we rely on internet and technology and it fails us. But thank you so much for staying online and waiting for us back on. We still have our amazing panelists here with us. Judy from Kenya Human Rights Commission, Paul from the Communication Authority, and Judy from Accessible Persons with Disability. Thank you and welcome back. I'll go back to Diana and want to pick from where she stopped on digital literacy. Diana, can you hear me? Okay. Paul, there's a question here from one of the viewers, and they're talking about how, with COVID, how is it ICT inclusivity being done, especially to children living with disability as regards to access to education? This is in regards to young children coming from humble backgrounds. I believe that some of the children require special tools for them to benefit with virtual classes. Would you want to respond to this?
I can try, but maybe just to let the viewer know that at individual level, maybe there are no initiatives which are targeting those kids with special needs level. But at the institutional level, I can say there are a number of efforts which have been done to bring connectivity to schools which are catering for persons with disabilities, be they hearing or any other challenges. And we've seen tools such as the JAWS and screen magnifiers working wonders for persons with disabilities and making them interact with these tools, and also to enable them undertake their classes using ICTs. So I know quite a number of institutions across the country could enumerate a number which have already been supported by the Communications Authority of Kenya to ensure that they can interact with ICTs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll come back to Diana. I hope that she can hear me now. Diana? Okay, she's still not yet there. I'll come back to Judy and give her 3 minutes to sort of give her contributions to the subject. Judy, do you want to take the floor?
Okay, thank you. Now that you've just given me a new position at KRC,
we want you to remain at the Association of Accessibility and Equality.
Okay. Of course, when we talk about ICT, it is hinged on education. And so there has to be, people must be educated. Just before we went off, I was just talking about the way right now everyone has to be online. And one of the amazing things, like my mother was not an ICT person, but now she has to do her Bible study and she has to do it on Zoom. So now I have become a consultant. If I was making money, I would be a millionaire right now. out of consultancy. Yeah, so you find that even the women who are able to connect online, they had some formal education before now. So it's a bit easier to tell them what to do, as much as it's please click here and please do not touch that one. You'll go offline. Please do not. It's easier. And so my thoughts would be, let's concentrate on digital skills in our education at the moment. Let's ensure that children as young as they get to school, they have digital skills that will help them later on in future. Because right now what we are seeing the youth are suffering is a digital skills mismatch. Yes, they have a digital skill, but still the market, they don't have what the market needs. So we need to have a balance between demand and supply. Is the digital skill that they have, can it be able to give them a job? Can they work with what they have? Yes. And so even when it comes to the adult education, which is across the country in many centers, there's adult education. Let's introduce digital skills to them, because the way forward is that everyone has to be online. And of course, as Mr. Paul has rightfully said, there is some efforts for persons with disability. Of course, it's not happening the way we would want it to happen. And so I'm just looking back from where the persons with disability have come from. There was a time that they were hidden in their homes and they were not attending school. So now we've got them out of there, we've brought them to school, which is excellent. So now let's give them the digital skills that they require without discriminating on whichever kind of disability the child might have. Because where we are right now, if we don't get this sorted now, we are looking at a 2030 agenda that we might not be able to meet.
Thank you very much, Judy. And I want to engage Paul here on the issue of accessibility. Already, from the data we are having from the Kenya Bureau of Statistics, it says that 1 out of every 4 people have access internet. But when you are looking at these numbers, there are very few numbers, considering that a majority of Kenyan population is actually the age of under the age of 25. And this speaks to the productivity kind of age that we have on the country. However, here in the country, we see a lot of telcos lining down their fiber cable, independent from each other, 1, and 2, they actually have to pay county levies to lay the fiber optic, and this actually translates to consumers paying the cost of that fiber laying at the county level. How does that speak to USF, and how does USF actually contribute to laying of infrastructure at the county level? Because without infrastructure, we cannot talk about digital inclusion.
Thank you. I don't know whether I got your question right, but I believe if I got it in a simple term, it would be what improvements can be put in place to enhance accessibility to internet, be it at county or wherever in Kenya. And one of the reasons, one of the points I would want to raise would be, yes, the use of USF to support broadband in those areas which are considered to be unserved or underserved. We could also use the tax rebates or subsidies to deploy these counties. And thirdly, to treat broadband as a critical infrastructure such that the government or the security services in the country are able to provide 24/7 manpower for those installations, so that they are not brought down by maybe people with ill motives. So these are some of the things which I think the government can do to ensure there is enhanced accessibility.
Follow the conversation on Twitter at hashtag KEIGF2020. Follow at KICTANet to continue with the discussion. This is not all where it starts and ends. We still need to hear a lot of your views, a lot of your comments, a lot of your recommendation, because this is the season of IGF. After the Kenya IGF, there is the Africa IGF coming up and global IGF, and we hope that some of these contributions that you're bringing on board will not only benefit us as Kenyans, but we also hope that we can take these recommendations onto the other global IGFs and the Africa IGF so that we can continue to learn from each other. So I'll come back and check with my panelists if any of them is on. And we begin to ask two questions. I know we've lost a bit of time, but I'll just keep two questions from the participants, and then I'll give you 3 minutes each to make your closing remarks. And I hope that out of these 3 minutes, I can pick up some of the recommendations that we can use going forward. I have a question for you, Judy. What will you say are the factors that affect digital divide? That is from Tuahir Hussein Kasim. And then I'll have one more question to Paul, and then we'll do our round of close. Okay, Judy, I have a question from you from Tawir, Kasim Hussein. He says, what would you say are the factors that affect digital divide?
Thank you. And thank you, Tawir, for the question. Affordability, accessibility, sustainability.
Powerful. Affordability, accessibility, sustainability. And I think when you talk about affordability, it talks of the quality of data. You know, people say Kenya is ahead. You can buy 1 gig of data at $1. But is that sufficient to do research, for example? So I think that still is key questions that we need to address going forward. Paul, there's a question from Enid Mayuli, and he says, is there a need to establish specific privacy laws or policies relating to children? There has been a rise on content featuring children being shared online by their guardians and parents. As much as at the moment the children are willing participants, they do not fully comprehend what is the content might be online forever. Should they have a change of mind, attitude as they grow older? Paul?
Thank you so much for that question. Yes, I think there is a need for policy that are targeting online content for children. And even in Kenya, I know there are guidelines on child online protection, which has been developed by the authority in collaboration with other stakeholders such as UNICEF and the government. So yes, there is need for such policies to be in place to support the usage of ICT content among our children. That's what I can say.
Sorry, yes. I lost you for a second.
I said that there is need for guidelines on child online protection to make the content which is available online for children safe. Without this, they are bound to be abused by the other users who are online. Yes.
Thank you very much.
I also indicated
yes,
that there is. I also indicated that these guidelines are already available in the country and they have been developed with many other partners such as UNICEF, the government, and ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul, for the great contributions and also telling us some of the frameworks that currently speak to the rights of the children. Viewers, I would still like to throw this back to you and remind you, you are also a very important stakeholder when it comes to digital inclusion and the matters of internet policy. So feel free to keep engaging on this kind of conversation. KICTANet actually has a platform that enables you to build your capacity to talk about some of these issues that you are speaking. I know as we are standing here articulating the issue of internet governance, you might probably wonder where do you want to begin if you want to jump in. Kenya School of Internet Governance is actually one of the greatest platforms that exists to build your capacity to engage on matters of internet governance. And I can raise my hand here and attest that as an alumni of this school, it actually enabled me to build my capacity and understand these issues way deeper, issues of data privacy, issues of inclusion, issues of affordability, issues of data, issues of trust. And we are looking for all stakeholders. Don't say you are not a techie and therefore you do not want to engage on these issues, be it a boda person, be it somebody doing geology or any other sector that you're actually in. It's very, very important to continue engage on this because we want to leave nobody behind as a theme and the mantra of the SDG goal 2030. I'll come back to my panelists and give them 3 minutes each to make their closing remarks. I'll start as usual format, leading by the ladies ahead. Judy, please make your final remarks.
Thank you very much, Keith. For us to achieve what we need, there need to be political will. We have the policies, we can write them and do them whichever way we want, but if there's no political will, then they are not going to move or we are not going to make any progress. There needs to be an inclusion for the private sector. Let them have a buy-in. Let them understand the need for this to be there in place. The entrepreneurs, whoever it is that is in the digital space, we need the education sector. Let's update our curriculum. Our teachers' training. Let's teach them the digital skills. I mean, we all saw what happened when the children have to be online because of this corona. And even the teachers themselves, they were not equipped enough to be to bring on the children online. So we need all of us to be part of this, so that in another 5 years we'll not be discussing these things, because the way we know internet and the way it's changing very rapidly, we will really be left behind. If in another IGF we'll still be discussing about inclusion, about content that's not accessible. Let's go past that. And just what you said, like leaving no one behind, I actually just wanted to finish and say, let's stop talking about leaving no one behind and let our actions actually reveal that we are not leaving anyone behind. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Judy, for those wonderful submissions. I have nothing useful to add on to those, but ask Paul to actually give his closing remarks. Thanks.
Thank you so much. I think in order for us to achieve digital inclusion, we need to implement policies that promote infrastructure sharing, particularly the passive infrastructure and spectrum resources, so that these resources can be affordable to the populations in the country. We also need to promote fiscal policies that includes promotion of smart devices to populations who are not able to buy them ordinarily. Then lastly, I would want to encourage the use of public-private partnerships in ensuring that there is expansion of services to the marginalized communities in Kenya. Thank you.
Thank you very much. These are very powerful recommendations that we are getting from our panelists today from this session on digital inclusion, looking at strategies and ways to improve better internet access in the country. My key takeaways from this session are: 1, partnership. 2, implementation. I think we have had a test of some of the good policies that we actually have in place, but they are not being implemented. I think this calls for synergy for all stakeholders to come on board. We are talking about PPP, public-private partnership, to come on board and implement these joint efforts that we are talking about, specifically on infrastructure sharing, because we cannot talk about digital inclusion, we cannot talk about internet mashinani if we don't have infrastructure that supports it. And energy is a very big key component in digital inclusion. So we need to also look at infrastructure that support ICT, and this includes other auxiliary services and critical services such as electricity. Until next time, see you soon. My name is KICTANet and I remain your host. Thank you very much.
Sisi Kenyans, we are always ready kuzunguka for bidhaa na biashara. And now, Kenyans have kadhaa local and international courier service providers and new e-commerce platforms. The introduction of a national addressing system will fungua even stronger market links and leave no county behind.
Mawasiliano kwetu, nguvu kwako. The Communications Authority of Kenya, opening your world.
KICTANet is a registry charged with the sole responsibility of administering, managing and operating our country code top-level domain, that is .ke. Our vision at KICTANet is .ke for every organization and name in Kenya. The core values at KICTANet are passion, efficiency, diversity, excellence and trust.
What marketing department does at KICTANet is to create an enabling environment for Kenyans to access the .ke domain online. So as a business, as an individual, as a learning institution, how do you take your brand online? How do you take your brand to the next level? Basically, this starts with subscription to the .ke domain and launching your website. Once you do this, the value adds you get to your brand are that you brand yourself uniquely Kenyan, you're protecting your brand online, it also speaks to the credibility of your company.
Sisi Kenyans, we don't poteza a chance to connect now to pay the fee. We now have close to 40 million internet subscriptions, and our mobile connectivity has helped us spread our biasharas wider, while new technologies open up a digital Kenyan economy that will leave no one behind.
Mawasiliano kwetu, nguvu kwako. The communication.
Sisi Kenyans, we don't poteza a chance to connect now to pay the fee. We now have close to 40 million internet subscriptions, and our mobile connectivity has helped us spread our biasharas wider, while new technologies open up a digital Kenyan economy that will leave no one behind.
Mawasiliano kwetu, nguvu kwako. The Communications Authority of Kenya, opening your world.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to the Kenya Internet Governance Forum. That was quite a session. We want to apologize for any technical hitch, but we are glad that you're staying with us and that you are engaged. Thank you so much also to Keith Andere for engaging also the audience, just also trying to articulate and also answer the questions that had been raised there. We had a good panelist and we were able to just take you through most of the queries that were there. So I just want to appreciate Keith for doing a fantastic job, and I also want to appreciate our panelists for being stellar performers in that particular panel. So welcome back and thank you so much for staying engaged and for staying with us. And we totally, wholeheartedly, hand on heart, appreciate each and every one of you. So we want to go into the next session where we're going to discuss about internet Governance School, and to take us through this session is someone that we all know, most of us know, and she is the manager for public policy, Safaricom, a lovely, pleasant person that I really hope that you can get to meet in person and maybe have a more engaging session. This is none other than Rosemary Kimwatu. Welcome, Rosemary. Take us from here, and we totally appreciate and we're looking forward to this particular session. Asante sana. My name is Ian Merore, your moderator. Asante.
So welcome everyone to today's session. Today we're discussing the Kenya School of Internet Governance that is powered by the Kenya ICT Action Network. The Kenya School of Internet Governance is a school that comes together, a group of thought leaders that come together over a period of a full week to make sure that we build the next generation of devoted members of the internet governance space, where students come together to learn more about internet governance and what role they can play in shaping the future, in advancing policy decisions, and even just creating a natural flow of thought leadership that is going to give a positive growth to the internet governance space. So welcome. I'm Rosemary Kimwatu. I'm a public policy lawyer at Safaricom, but also a very, very devoted member of the Kenya ICT Action Network, where we come together as stakeholders to make sure that policy issues in Kenya and in the region are well articulated. So on to my presentation. So the Kenya School of Internet Governance, this is the 5th edition of the Kenya School of Internet Governance. For the first time since we started, I remember this was in the year 2016. 2016 was quite amazing. We had the first pioneer bunch of students who came together and were taught about internet governance. And over the years, we have continued and trained great cohorts. Today, through the Kenya School of Internet Governance, we have great shapers of policy. We have great commentators. We have even leading lawyers who have come into the space and have actually shaped policy narratives in this country. So when we look back in terms of the 5 years, it's while we can say that we're grateful for those who've continued to support us, and also grateful for our students who not only just studied, but actually took it upon themselves to take internet governance to the next level, and having had a basis from the Kenya School of Internet Governance, which we shall call KICA. So KICA ordinarily takes place it's going to take place in a 3-day session with the aim of introducing beginners to internet governance and basic concepts in internet governance policy. And as I mentioned earlier, the main goal in this is to ensure that we increase the expertise, not just in Kenya, but even regionally and actually globally in internet governance processes. The generations that have come today will live in a very special time in terms of technology, in terms of development, because things are happening so rapidly. So how do we build the next future of people who can actually have candid conversations shaping the future, the policy future that we're going to live in, and also the internet governance space as we move on. So the key thing this year is that this is the first virtual IGF, and the first virtual internet governance forum, and also the first virtual Kenya School of Internet Governance. The biggest turnaround we've had to have is what one of our colleagues called CADIT, Codit Assisted Digital Transformation, which actually means that we had to quickly shape how we deliver the KICA class. Traditionally, it was face-to-face in a venue for 3 days with breaks and lunch, but with COVID, we had to very quickly put together, first of all, the curriculum, put it up on an online portal, having put up on an online portal, then now recruiting students online and actually giving them access to the portal during the session. So this time, for the first time ever, we have a fully internet moderated internet governance forum, and also Kenya School of Internet Governance class. So for us, it's a very big win. It's also a plus in terms of the fact that, yes, we finally, though forced by COVID, have actually realized that internet governance classes through KICA and the Kenya School of Internet Governance can actually be given online virtually. We can actually reach many more people, and I think this has just been a very positive win from this. So the course, of course, took over place in a 3-day course, in a 3-day schedule from the 26th to 28th October in 2020. And because of being virtual, we're able to host a wide number of people and from very many counties in Kenya and very many countries, even in East Africa. So the concepts that we covered are internet design principles, like how did the internet come to be? When did it start? What technology was used? How did people communicate? And in that first class is when the age in which you've grown up in, we take so much for granted. The fact that you just go to your phone, switch it on, and you have access to the internet. It wasn't like that. So the first introductory class actually shows you the history of the internet, how did things come to be, and how do various players come in. Then the second one now, through having had the fast development in internet, then came internet governance concepts that came up, because there needed to be structures for engagement, even structures of how the technology was going to run. You even learn, why is it HTTP? Why then do you have HTTPS? You even get to understand the basics, the things that you many times take for granted. A website.com, another one .ke, another one .au or wherever. You get to understand about the naming in internet systems and all the background policy issues that led to why things are the way they are. And then, of course, in the next one, we introduce classes to international roles of internet governance. Why must you have negotiations at a global scale? Why is it that it's important not just to have internet conversations in Kenya, but also even say at AU level or even at international level? What role will African speakers play in shaping the internet governance narrative in the years before? Of course, many times, and it's true, the evidence is that there's heavy rapid internet absorption in Africa, but we're just starting to scratch the surface of the potential of the internet in Africa. So what conversations are going to lead the next generations into harnessing the benefits? And then, of course, we'll also discuss private sector roles in internet governance. Of course, we know that in as much as we have our regulators, government, there's also private sector who come in to actually provide last mile connectivity. And in my 9 to 5, that's exactly what I do. Assist a private company, Safaricom. See how do you navigate policy decisions, policy issues to make sure that there's a correct environment to ensure that technology is developed. And then, of course, in the end, we'll do emerging issues. The internet today is not what it used to be a long time ago. Internet is maybe you'd go there once a day to check your emails. Today, the internet is in everything that you do, right from your healthcare to your financial services, to your prayers even, if you're religious. So we'll get to emerging issues and even other issues that have come up, like human rights. Did you ever imagine that censorship would not happen through shutting down a newspaper, but by shutting down a website? So what are the emerging issues that come up? And that's basically what happens in the days when we have the classes. And then, of course, at the end of it, when we've had our students who have been through a very rigorous process of studying, of having exams, of even having assignments, and even engagements with instructors, and even having listened to industry leaders, which are all parts of the discussions, we then have a ceremony, an award ceremony where we sit down to award all those who've taken their time, their effort, and those who've actually embedded themselves into learning regarding internet governance. So the award ceremony is held in recognition of the students who've been through the 3-day rigorous training, and actually to recognize the fact that they have chosen to be the next generation of participants in internet governance. And we as KICTANet are glad to have gotten the opportunity to foster the future of internet governance. So as we celebrate our students today, it is just celebration and pure joy on our parts. Very happy and wishing them all the best. I think in university, when you graduate, you're given the power to read. I think at the end of KICA, we give you the power to engage in internet governance discussions. So thank you very much. And this is not the end. When you graduate from KICA, it's just the beginning for you to continue engaging. You've been given the tools, you've been empowered. Now go forth, share with the rest, and introduce more people. And having I think one of the key learnings for KICTANet was in this engagement is that we really don't need to have the Kenya School of Governance once a year. We can actually offer it a number of times in a year and actually have more people engaged. Because one, the curriculum is packaged, everything is put together online, and just about having teachers and the sessions happening. So we look forward to maybe even being able to roll out the Kenya School of Internet Governance more than once in a year. But of course, this can only happen through the support of our partners, and we look forward to great things in the years coming ahead. So once again, I'm Rosemary Koech Kimwatu, member of the Kenya ICT Action Network KICTANet that delivers the Kenya School of Internet Governance KICA, but also a manager public policy at Safaricom. So thank you very much and all the best to our graduates today.
Let's go beyond, let's go beyond. Let's go beyond. Mimi na wewe tukibuni, kazi nzuri ya kujivunia. Let's go beyond, let's go beyond. Kwa juhudi na matumaini, twaelekea kesho pamoja. Twende tukiuke, twende tukiuke. Safaricom.
And ladies and gentlemen, we have finally come to the end of the Kenya Internet Governance Forum 2020. It has been amazing and fantastic. We are honored and glad to have you on board, and we want to say thank you to the audience and thank you also to our sponsors. Thank you for being amazing and thank you for being awesome. I'm confident that even over the weekend you're going to meet for a little bit of rumba and have those discussions even on the dance floor as you engage with the public sector and the private sector forum, as you just dance and engage and talk about how we can be able to just take this conversation further. Thank you for being amazing. My name is Ian Moirore. I have been your moderator for this session. And the icing on the cake, definitely, and the cherry on top, the one who is going to come and give us the vote of thanks to officially close this particular session. He is the chair for Kenya Internet Governance Forum 2020. This is none other than Barack Otieno Jacom Mwenyewe. Ero Kamano, thank you very much. And over to you, Barack. Asante.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for staying with us all this time and for participating in these interesting conversations. As the Swahili say, kilicho na mwanzo hakikosi mwisho. We are glad you took time to participate in the 13th edition of the Kenya Internet Governance Forum. My name is Barack Otieno. I'm the chairman of the Kenya Internet Governance Forum 2020 Multi-Stakeholder Advisory Group. This is the team that put together this event, and it has representation from government, from civil society, from academia, and from the technical community. Of course, I won't forget to thank CIO East Africa, who have been the event producers for a fantastic job. CIO has been a friend of the Kenya Internet Governance Forum for many years, and this year we have taken it a notch higher. Of course, we had a few challenges here and there. Excellence is a journey that has no stop. We have moved it a notch higher. We've had more than 299 participants in this very event, and we are glad for what we have been able to attain up to this time. Of course, as a country, there's a lot we need to do. We still need to revisit the infrastructure conversation. Many a times we have had the conversation that Nairobi si Kenya, na Kenya si Nairobi. This year, we have managed to bring in as many participants from different corners of the country. I'm sure there was someone all the way from Kilifi, our brother Twahil. I'm sure there was someone from Busia, there was someone from Malaba, there was someone from Mandera, and we are glad that we've been able to achieve this through the power of the internet. Of course, I want to once again remind us that the theme for this year's conversation was Internet for Human Resilience and Solidarity. The Internet has kept the Kenyan community going during the COVID-19 pandemic. Our businesses have continued as usual. Our government institutions have continued as usual. Our other facets of the community have continued as usual. Of course, the themes for this year's forum were data, trust, and inclusion. We are in an interesting time where we are witnessing an increase in the growth of usage of the internet, not only in the capital city, but in the rural areas. Today, I believe the data commissioner is before Parliament, before she takes up her responsibilities officially, and I believe that going forward, we are going to see a change even in the way the internet is administered locally. We have also touched on trust, and we have also touched on inclusion. We need to bring in many more people into this internet governance conversation. And finally, I want to thank our sponsors, starting with the Communications Authority, which has believed in the Kenya Internet Governance Forum from the onset in the year 2008. Facebook, which has been a great supporter of the Kenya Internet Governance Forum, and of course the Kenya School of Internet Governance Forum. Safaricom, yenyewe twaweza. The Association of Progressive Communications, the Kenya Human Rights Commission, and of course, the Kenya ICT Action Network, Board of Trustees. Thank you very much for what you have done to make this year's event what it has been. Asanteni sana, may God bless you, and see you in the 2021 Kenya Internet Governance Forum. My name is Barak Otieno. I'm a trustee at the Kenya ICT Action Network, and I was the chair for the 2020 Kenya Internet Governance Forum Multi-Stakeholder Advisory Committee. Have a good rest of the day, afternoon, or morning from wherever you are watching us. Goodbye.